So there we go. So hello. Uh, hope you're doing well. Um, Started a little later than usual. Usually I'm a bit 5 minutes earlier, so this time I was 2 minutes early. Not entirely sure. Um, I'm coming at you live from the new desk. I haven't taken a picture of it or anything, because there's a lot of garbage, and I gotta get this other old desk out of the way, and I gotta just clean this fucking office. It's crazy in here. But I am coming at you from the new desk. It has like maybe like half a foot more space. I don't know. Maybe a little more than that. I thought it would be a little bit bigger. But oh well. Has Gondor called for aid? Yes. Absolutely. Hello, Draco Kraken. Um but I will say new desk is higher than old desk, which is nice actually. Because now my chair can fit underneath it. Which is actually like really nice as opposed to what I was working with before. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, hello everyone, and welcome back to Table Talk Discussion and Discourse. I, as always, am your host, Alejo, aka Great on 95. I will be joined by Boo this evening, but he will be a little bit late, and Aiden will not be here this evening, unfortunately. He's having a thing. Big enough for a box for a cat? Oh, yeah. Um, the box itself is full of styrofoam, so I decided to not give it to my cats, because I don't want them to eat the styrofoam, uh, or get into it and get it everywhere. Hello, Timothy. How are you? How is everybody, by the way? I hope you're all doing well. Um, but yeah, so for those of you who are in our Discord, I posted a picture of the FedEx delivery for the box, and everything was inside it, so we're good. Um, on the desk though, they're gonna discover it eventually. That's true. Yeah, they could easily. Yeah, I can't. So I can't let them up on the desk, because what they like to do is they go for my sound dampening. Uh, what's it? Why can't I think of words? Um, the wall stuff, the sound dampening wall stuff. It's they have ripped it apart to shreds here and there, and I don't want them to get to the wires either. It's it's a whole thing, you know. Keeping a cat off a desk. Good luck with that. Yeah, I know. Good, you. I am doing all right. I spent the last like 3 hours. So can I tell you guys that I'm a little stupid? Um, I'm a little bit of an idiot. But that's fine. I've never claimed to be smart. I'm not smart. I just know things. Um, and I had old desk, all set up. Had the big computer on it and everything, and only a little. I had the big computer on it. My computer that I'm using these days, for everything. And it was I decided that I would build new desk before taking down old desk. And so I did, to the point that I could put things onto new desk. Technically new desk isn't totally built, because there's still pieces of it that are over on my floor over here. It comes with like a shelf that you can build, that goes on the back of one of the bigger bits. And also it has like raised things for monitors, like monitor stands that go along the edge. But I didn't build those. I didn't put those on it because the fucking Virgil here, that's the name of my computer. Virgil is massive. It's fucking it's like half of my body massive. And it's heavy. And when I was moving it off of old desk to put onto new desk, I nearly dropped it and I broke one of my monitors. So I replaced my monitor with the old TV that I was using. And so now I'm kind of at old setup a little bit. I used to have 3 of the same monitors, but now I just have 2 and an old TV. So I had to redo the screen region for Watch Together and everything again, and it's going to be a little bit of a time before I get the another monitor. Most people don't have server towers for a PC case. That is true. But yeah, so it takes up the exact same amount of room that it took up on old desk, obviously, because it's the same computer. And there's less space than I thought there would be for the extension. Or that's not exactly true, but it would not. It might fit on this small outcropping that has a little bit, like, it has shelves in it. But that's where I put the battery back up. So I don't know. Maybe I'll move it around. But at the moment, I'm tired. I've lifted a very fucking heavy giant computer, and I got real angry moving it around and everything because I hate moving. Just in general, moving is not like moving as in like moving furniture and such. It's not my bag. And every time I do it, it makes me irrationally angry. So that was me. It was great. Is that the biggest PC they make? Yeah, this is the biggest case. Didn't really think that it was going to be that big when I bought it. From Digital Storms, again, not sponsored, but I've bought both of my newer computers from them, and I've very much enjoyed them. This one especially, because it can do anything at the moment, which is great. But yeah, it's the biggest case they have, and that was a mistake. That was a mistake. But it holds all the shit, and I can lift it, so you know. Yeah. Anyway, that's enough about me and my being a very idiotic person for a moment. But yeah, everything is set on new desk. Old desk I took apart after moving everything off it. And then I couldn't get out of the office for a little while because it was everywhere. And now I can barely get out of the office, but we're okay. I've just got to throw a bunch of shit away and get this old desk to my mother because she wanted a new desk. So, and this one is perfectly fine. It's just, I thought that this one would be bigger, and technically it is. So, we're doing okay. Everything is fine. I need a tape measure at some point just to see if this will fit at least enough on this space next to me here on my left. Because it would actually be really nice if it could, and then I could put the monitors on, the platforms and stuff they're made for and everything. Anyway, it's fine. That's enough. This isn't why you're here, obviously. So, today we're going to be talking about dungeons. Whoa! Now, not specifically necessarily dungeons as in Dungeons and Dragons dungeons, but dungeons in general. Because I found a video that is called In Defense of Dungeons, which is interesting to me because I didn't realize that we needed to defend dungeons. I listened to the first minute of it, and it's about justifying dungeons and the amount of them that could be in a world. and that there should be a lot of them, which is interesting to me, because I don't really think about, in mechanical terms, we've talked about it before, everything can be a dungeon, really, if you map it out and turn it into a quote-unquote dungeon, right? It mechanically serves the same purpose. A fucking house can be a dungeon. Multi-stories, a basement, potentially. Like, it's, a thing that you can explore. You can chat all you want, dude, I don't mind. I appreciate that. But, I could chat all day about stuff, but I wanna at least talk about this sooner rather than later, because this video is like a half an hour long, which is very interesting to me. So let me hope that everything works when I do this. Yes, good. So this is In Defense of Dungeons. This is brought to us by the Grungeon Master. Nice, good name. Yeah, the Grungeon Master, who made this, I didn't look at the date, actually. Let me look at the date when this was made. Real quick. What? There we go. There we go. This was 2 months ago that this was made. So, hopefully a lot of people have seen it, which is good. I apparently have too much anime brain rot, because why would a fantasy world have dungeons? I know, right? That's crazy. Insane. Don't mind me. Just, need to stir my tea a little bit so that I don't, just drink nothing with honey. Anyway, okay. This is the episode for me. Defending dungeons is one of the most important skills for an overlord. True. Hello, Entropy. He's defending dungeons. I thought he was going against them. No. Absolutely not. No, we're good. So yeah, general thoughts on dungeons, I guess, is I don't really think about them. I think we've talked about this before as well, but, dungeons are, fun and interesting, but it's not necessarily something that I have designed a lot of, because I'm less of a dungeon crawling kind of DM and more of a character focused DM, which is why Vampire has been working so well when we do get to play it. And other things as well. I can do the same thing with them. Delta Green has been great for it as well. Like, you can make anything more focused towards what you would rather it be, obviously, whatever system it is. But I don't know. It's, for me, a dungeon can tell a story. But it also requires a few different things, like a puzzle, like, usually puzzles and such, and then you have the enemies within it and everything. Like, I don't know, it's, if I have to think about the dungeon itself and, think about the encounters, I guess, it's less, I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't really just make me go, ooh, yeah. Like, I can think about a dungeon, and I can think about, ooh, this is why this is happening here, and all this kind of stuff. But it's never my go-to, right? I'm less, you guys go through the underground, caverns of, the goblins, right? To go and get them, and get them out of here or anything. And you got to go through each of the rooms, and once you get to a certain room, ooh, there's a big goblin, or many goblins, ooh, fight them, and all that kind of stuff. I'm less that way, and I'm more, well, you go to the goblin cave, and, yeah, you can go through and just fight them all if you want, or potentially you could figure out why they're doing what they're doing, Maybe talk to them. I don't know. Giving it more than just the combat focus, I guess, which everybody really does. I'm not special in this case, obviously. I'm just it doesn't hit my brain in the same way as just you go into the town and start talking to people, you know? I like that more than you go out to the dungeon to go and clear it. But anyway, I've said like the same thing a few times in different ways. So, let's begin, okay? Here we go. This is In Defense of Dungeons by the Grungeon Master.
Common complaint about the fantasy genre is that the dungeon, a multi-roomed, multi-layered space filled with monsters of all kinds in a roughly ascending hierarchical order, is a bit contrived. And it is very true that we rarely see these exact kinds of settings in fantasy worlds that aren't designed specifically around a game. Because there is something very satisfying, specifically in gaming, about fighting a horde of monsters to test your mettle or get some reward at the end. It's far less interesting, for example, to read about the same concept. Now, you might be expecting me to go on and on about how all of the best showdowns in fiction, from the screen to the page, kind of ape a dungeon structure, a classic example being Die Hard. Or to be arguing that, on a technicality, almost any fortified structure in history had some form of donjon, some form of place to put prisoners and forget about them. No. Instead, today, I am going to make the argument that video game-style dungeons in almost exact replicas should be littering any reasonable fantasy world.
Interesting, right? The premise being that they should, like... they should be everywhere, right? Which is, I guess it depends, right? I fight them all, yeah. I shouldn't have really. YouTube doesn't like the Conan quote. Shit, that sucks, dude. I don't know. Maybe I should just turn off YouTube's like monitoring of the chat if I can. I don't know. But anyway, so talking about dungeons and them being everywhere, I mean, it depends, I suppose, on what we're defining as dungeons specifically. Like, if we're going for ruins and encampments, or like I was saying with the underground goblin, like, is conclave the right word? Not necessarily, but kind of. Anything like that, they should be everywhere, and I would assume everywhere has a history because of it. If we're including things like something like there's the catacombs of some place, you know, that are underground and they're massive, and then that could itself be a dungeon. You could technically call sewer systems a dungeon, right? If you want to go mechanically, but I guess it's just like depending on how you define them, I suppose. So, I guess let's find out definition, potentially.
Cultural, tactical, sociological, and practical reasons. And stick around towards the end of the video where
hello!
How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
I had a rough day at work.
Ah, fair enough.
Yeah. So I was working so hard in December,
Mm-hmm.
and I had 2 days off.
Mm.
So when I got in there and started lifting shit, everything just fucking locked up in my back. So that was fun.
Ooh, yikes, dude. Hate that.
Yeah. So when my job involves lifting and shifting and shit,
Yeah.
it's not fun when your back isn't working.
No, real bad, in fact. Real bad.
Yeah.
You know.
Also, I was playing my Return to Moria sandbox, and it took me like a full fucking 8 hours to find the other half of the game.
Wow.
But I did.
Good.
I thought for sure that my fucking world spawned without a way for me to access some spots.
Sure.
But I finally found it.
Good. Is the Vatican a dungeon? Yes.
Yes. Full of lots of relics and artifacts.
That's
and
right.
Shit.
So yeah, we're talking about dungeons today.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, because this video is saying in defense of dungeons, and the premise so far is that the argument that he's making is that dungeons should be everywhere in a fantasy world, which I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Uh,
So like Skyrim it, basically.
I don't know. That's the thing.
Walk 30 feet and there's a cave.
Well, yeah, right. Like that's the thing. I'm wondering what the definition is for dungeon at this point, right?
Yeah.
Because like we've talked about before, anything can be a dungeon mechanically.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I also don't know if the context of this. I assume the context of this is a TTRPG context, but
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. It could be more than just that, obviously, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that
'Cause-
being something that could also be in fiction as well for fantasy, which, you know, I can
Yeah.
imagine, like, in those cases, you put ruins and stuff everywhere, and you just do it with your world building, and that's fair enough. It's fine, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that you can do with it is to treat more areas like dungeons.
Yeah.
You know, because you could have a forest,
Hmm.
and a lot of times that forest is just a forest.
Yes.
But I think with this, maybe, I don't know if I'm right on this, but maybe he's like, well, you should treat that forest like a dungeon, and that, you know, everything else like a dungeon. And I'm like,
Right.
that sounds like it would be kind of interesting, but I think you would eventually get sick of that.
You could, yeah. It's like I was saying before. I don't really think about dungeons much when I do things, because I'm more about, hey, you go to town, you meet these interesting people, right?
Yeah.
You're in a city and you meet these interesting characters somehow, right? Like it's just, I'm more focused on what the players want to do. And if they do want to go clear a dungeon, that's fair enough. I can make you a dungeon. But I'm more about like, oh yeah, you want to go out and fucking go shopping or something? Yeah, let's do it. Fuck it. You know?
You know, the store is it's a dungeon now.
Right, yeah. And again, I'm not saying that to say anything bad about, you know, dungeon crawling or anything, right? It's just it's not my scene as much.
Yeah.
The few times that I've done dungeons, people have burned down doors and such, and it's
Yeah. It just doesn't really go the way you expect it to.
Right, but it's not even like that's not even a deterrent or anything. It's just I don't know. The construction of them isn't something that I find as enjoyable, I guess.
Fair.
I don't know, because I can also find it really enjoyable when I'm like, ooh, it's this way because of this and this, right? And these people are here because this, and like thinking about it, but like actually implementing it, I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah. Sometimes inside of a fish is a dungeon. Yes, that is true.
Yes, true.
How would you make something different for a dungeon besides layers and bosses and stuff? Puzzles.
Puzzles, tricks, traps.
Yep.
You could have a dungeon where you can kind of think of it, if we want to use Skyrim as an example.
Yeah.
You could, you know how in the Dwemer ruins, they're full of mechanically they're full of enemies because they have like the Dwemer robots and shit. But you could have a dungeon that's actually like fully abandoned. Like there's literally nothing living in there other than automata that just like maintain the place. And when goblins or whatever tries to settle in there, the robots just come in and like clean it up. They don't even kill the goblins.
Yeah.
And the goblins are like, well, fuck, that was our shit.
Yeah,
We can't stay here. They take it all, you know.
Yeah.
And then maybe at the very end of the dungeon, after you get past like all the traps and, you know, all the barriers and shit, you find a treasure chamber where it's like a little dump where all the cleaning robots have dumped shit.
Yeah, for sure.
So you could totally do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it really just depends on what you want to do, really.
Yep.
If you want it to be completely empty and just be more of a lore thing, even of just like, oh yeah, you go around, you start learning about shit. You know, this is an old ruin from the before times, and you find old history tomes and murals that depict ancient battles or the rising of kings or something. And it could be relevant to the situation or something, and you find relics because of it. The puzzles that are like, oh, you find this book, it talks about this poem, and oh, look, this wall, it has part of the poem. Oh, now you can, if you do the part of the poem that's missing, maybe it'll do something.
Yeah, like open up a secret door.
Exactly. There's a lot to do. There's absolutely a lot to do with it. It's really cool and interesting. Don't let my weirdness make you think anything different.
Yeah, because dungeons are cool. They are fun.
They are.
They are work to build, though,
Yes.
especially if you want it to make sense.
Yes, absolutely. The pyramids are dungeons, but they got cleared a long time ago. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Maybe go visit a giant and the crawl space under his house is the dungeon. Yeah.
Ha ha! That would be cool.
That would be really cool. Walmart could be a dungeon. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. IKEA literally is a dungeon.
Yep. Dude, a store where it is a dungeon, so the only way to buy things is to escape with it. Yeah. There you go. Anyway, here we go.
We'll be sharing hand-drawn maps of some of these styles of dungeon.
Frog enemies called the grunge? Isn't that what he's going for with that icon?
Maybe.
I could have sworn there was a frog, a small frog person that were literally called
yes,
or grungs. They're called grungs.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Not grunges.
Yeah.
Worth looking at why someone would want to excavate or occupy a space not on the surface. Because let's face it, fantasy dungeons are almost always depicted as being in some way under the ground, either in some cave system, in an undermountain complex, or underneath a castle. For our purposes today, by the way, we are counting caves, and especially structures that are built into and utilising natural cave systems, as dungeons.
Thank you.
Just for ease of argument, because they're oftentimes presented very, very similarly to the more rigid box room dungeon, just as a more natural and interesting way to do it. Now, being away from the surface and burrowing are two tried and true survival strategies. From ants to badgers to gigantic Pleistocene sloths, many creatures find great value in burrowing and tunnelling to keep out of harm's way, or to provide some space of refuge. Many of nature's earliest burrowers used this technique first to get sedimentary nutrients out of the ground, and to find shelter from predators. These simple desires for resources and shelter may seem rudimentary, but they also motivate much of human historic burrowing as well. We dig for safety, as is seen from even the modern day impulse to create a bunker to survive some apocalyptic event, and we dig for resources. Yes, oftentimes we're digging through things that are harder than soil, for things more valuable than earthworms. But the point still stands. It's still fundamentally the same objective.
Yeah, the easiest way to create a reason as to why this complex has been made, wherever you put it in your world, is for resources, just in general.
Yes.
Take,
at least typically, anyway.
Yeah, take as we've been doing. Take dwarves.
Yes.
A lot, at least stereotypical dwarves.
Flesh can be plundered. The stone holds its own.
That's right. Exactly. And so they go and they get, the iron and the steel that they need from it, and the gems, the precious gems, because they're useful more than just hoarding it away, but for trade, obviously. Hell, you could have
There's not a ton of wood underground, so
that's true.
Most people will trade a fair amount of wood for like a 20 karat diamond.
Exactly. You could have it be that they are the main suppliers of the metals to make coin in your world, and then have that be like their trade to make it so that they can get other resources with whatever power there should be. If they aren't the power themselves, they could be. But and thus you have a huge dungeon that you can then use here and there of just mining shafts and quarries and such. Places that...
What helps... Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say places that they might have gotten all the resources out of, or maybe they abandoned because they found something that took over the mine.
Yeah.
And drove them out.
Something that can help with that is the fact that mines, depending on who they're built by and who they're dug by, they can be quite rigid. They can be like box rooms or, tunnels and stuff. They don't have to be so natural, and you can utilize more straight lines in their in the maps and shit.
Yeah.
Make creating them a lot easier, or at least mapping them a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. And for another example that's D&D related, the Underdark. The Underdark has many occupants in it, and those occupants need to find underground streams and ponds and all of that, wells of water, if you will, and and potentially find places that they can get food somehow, or grow food, or whatever, and carve out various caverns that twist and turn and lead to a bunch of different things that that you can utilize, or that used to lead to a bunch of different things if you don't want them to be currently occupied by those who carved it, right? And then, you can have your shittier, just, this is a natural cavern, as was said before, this is just taken over. And you can just have your, guys that just were like, yeah, it's hidden away. A bandit camp easily can go into an underground cavern because fucking it's here. We can just hide down here and nobody might know about it. I don't know.
Yeah, we may as well make use of the structure.
Exactly. Easily defendable, at least. Points of ingress are limited. But yeah.
Not to mention, if you have something like that, you can have the occupants know of, secret little hidey holes in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you might have a group of adventurers go into that bandit camp cave to try to flush them all out, and then the bandits collapse a tunnel behind you.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell? There's no other entrance that we know of. Why would they collapse their own tunnel? It's like, oh, that must mean that they have another way out.
Exactly. I was gonna say collapsing tunnels is a great thing that you can have as a threat. Hell, you can have natural disasters be a threat as well, of earthquakes and such.
Less common for sure, but
less
depending
common
on what's in the area, you totally could.
Yeah.
If you've got an area that's known for having bullets in there, but I don't think anybody really uses bullets too often anymore, sadly, because they're super cool.
Yeah, they are.
If you've got bullets, they dig tunnels, or thrycreen, or umberhulks, or other digging monsters, the tunnels will be, weaker because they've honeycombed them.
Yes, exactly. Lot of cool ideas that you can really get and make sense with, so that you can just utilize them quite easily.
Yeah.
A sibling used to call Walmart the Temple of Doom. Fair enough. I'm assuming Cyberpunk has grungeons. Nice.
Yeah, they would have grungeons. They would have essentially super super high density alleyways and sewer systems, really deep sewer systems and shit. And you can have literally corporate skyscrapers be a dungeon.
Exactly. Anything that could be a quote unquote slum
labyrinthian
town. Yeah, anything that has enough space. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be that big, but it can have enough space.
Yeah. It doesn't really exist anymore, but look up images of the walled city of Kowloon, and you'll get what I mean.
Yeah.
They tore it down some years ago, I think. It was literally the highest human density on the planet.
Yeah.
It was insane.
derelict starships are good sci-fi dungeons? Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Not to mention,
fucking copy.
I know. I'm sorry. Not to mention, you can even have asteroid mines or just planets. Really, like sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's a planet. They're fucking huge, right? Don't do the
Yeah.
shitty new Star Wars thing where only one place on the planet matters when it's a fucking planet.
Yeah,
There's a lot of space on a planet. Anyway.
there is.
But
Have you seen Earth?
it's crazy. I know.
Yeah,
and
it's
obviously
pretty big.
you can make it so that your planet only has parts that are hospitable, right?
Yes.
But even so, I mean, every now and then you should at least utilize a planet.
Yeah.
Many people
Thinking about urban dungeons.
Yes.
It's really more about buildings.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, you don't really have caves in just cities.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really a thing.
Yeah.
But your underground options, like we said, are already sewers. You could have
Catacombs.
like factories and stuff, and maybe depending on the city, like for example, there are cities in Eastern Europe that still have semi-functional Soviet era nuclear bunkers.
True. Yep.
If you've watched Shy on YouTube, he actually explores several of them. That's how I know that. And let's see here. Yeah, big buildings, sewers, factories. You could have a junkyard or a dump be kind of a dungeon.
Yeah, absolutely.
A bit of an open one, but it could totally be.
Yeah, for sure. I think my favorite sci-fi dungeons are liminal / interdimensional spaces. Yep. Very good ones. Absolutely.
Those ones are super cool, but I feel like they would be very difficult to run without some sort of visual aid. It'd be like trying to explain the game Superliminal to someone.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. No, I get you.
Right?
Yeah. It would be, it would be one of those, you reveal the map as you go, right? And then,
yes,
make sure that they're aware that if they get put to a different spot or put back where they began or something, that you just show them that,
Yeah,
like,
because they need, like, you're breaking the fourth wall a little bit, but they kind of need to understand what the hell's going on.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's just insanity.
Right, yeah. You can explain it to a degree, but it's just it just makes it so much easier for everybody if you show them. Saw pictures of that walled city. It was wild. There you go.
Yes, it's insane. I want to say it was like 1,000 people or so for every like 100 square, not 100 square feet, but like 100-foot square.
Yeah.
Because they built on top of each other.
Yeah. What is that? What is the word for that? Shit.
Dystopian?
Well, yes, but also like there was a specific word for like a single building that is, it's like a city kind of. I don't.
Oh, an arcology.
Yes, arcology. There you go.
Yep.
That's what I was wondering.
Yes. Tiny baby arcologies.
Yes. What are you saying? All humans on Earth don't just live in Kenya? Are you? No. What?
No.
Crazy. But yeah, exactly. It's anyway. Whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Living underground also has some other benefits. For example, in inhospitable environments, staying out of the scorching sun or freezing air is pretty smart, especially as underground...
Metro.
Yes.
Metro is a great example for a post-apocalyptic dungeon city, basically. I mean,
yeah, honestly, that one, Metro feels less like a dungeon and more like a whole other world.
Oh,
considering how big the Metro actually is.
Yeah.
It's like the ruins of Undermountain.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I'm just saying that it's just another thing that you can use of branches of the Metro can be a dungeon, basically.
Yes, just a whole subway tunnels.
Yeah, exactly. Any sort of tunnel system, for sure. Liminal space is cool, but it makes me think of that one picture of the back rooms that people memed to death.
Yeah. Well, I mean, can't escape the memes sometimes.
That's right.
You just can't really let it impact what you're doing.
Exactly. I still like backroom stuff because I only, engaged with it as much as I wanted.
Yeah. And I never actually really got into it. I was just like, oh, that's pretty neat, and then moved on.
That's absolutely fair.
ground temperatures are generally fairly well regulated and don't shift too much to either extreme. Furthermore, we build shelters and homes, and we inhabit caves and tunnels to avoid exposure more generally to any outside element that might be considered dangerous or bad for our health. With the added benefit, of course, that caves and tunnels can form naturally. Houses, not so much. Now, at this point, you may be thinking of cavemen, and them as an example of how humans have historically lived and spent their entire lives living in caves. Well, unfortunately, that's not actually true. Caves have a habit of preserving organic materials quite well, which is why our ancestors used them for mostly storage, ritual purposes, and temporary shelter. Man has a natural proclivity to be out in the open, and so our image of the Stone Age more generally, and of cavemen living inside caves, is not necessarily accurate.
Nah, dude, all I think of is the Flintstones when I think of cavemen, alright? They're out in the sun and shit, but they're making their houses and shit. It's fine.
Yeah, and they make cars too.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. They make the cars, they have the dinosaurs that work for them, and so, it's a living!
Yeah. And I
yeah.
I think it's a little bit strange to bring that up, because while, yes, you're entirely correct in that, caverns were used a lot for storage and ritualistic stuff, there's nothing really to say that they didn't, just sleep there.
Well, that's why he said temporary housing.
Well, I mean, that would just be housing.
No,
effectively, because we don't spend all of our lives inside our houses.
Well, yeah,
they would sleep there and live there, but they would still go out and hunt and do everything.
Right, but
unless what he's saying, I'm just taking it the wrong way.
Yeah, I think because weren't they more nomadic in the sense of moving between places?
Oh, okay. I suppose that's fair. They were more hunter-gatherers at the time.
That's what I think that we're talking about here, because we now live in a house all the time, but it is our house where we stay every night usually.
Yes.
Or at least a space where we stay every night, rather than going out, roaming the land to get our food, and then finding a place for shelter, right?
Yeah.
I thought all humans spent their entire lives in caves and only saw shadows on the wall from outside. That's right!
Yeah.
That... Is it Plato who did that? Was that Plato?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plato's allegory of the cave.
Yes, that's it. Love that.
Yeah.
How our ancestors would have lived. Caves were specialised places used for temporary or semi-temporary shelter, but never generally the sole home of a community of people. But surely this can't be right. It makes more sense to live in a cave with a single guardable entrance, to keep yourself safe from all of the vastness of the elements and the dangerous beasts that live out beyond. Here's the thing. When our ancestors first decided to group together, live together, hunt together, and settle together, we began to occupy a really interesting place in the kind of natural food chain. We weren't apex predators, because most of our diet was formed of herbivores, not other carnivores. But we occupied a very similar place to an apex predator, in the sense that we had great say over what happened cascading down the food chain by our own food choices. With sufficient numbers and social organisation and communication, a group of humans could take down reasonably any creature. And with those same conditions, it was very hard to predate early humans as well, as we were in too big groups and too generally watchful for that to happen. We're kind of a bit like wolves, really. And in large enough groups, in large enough communities, we were able to settle nearest to the resources that we needed to survive. The wonderful flowering plants which would bear fruit, the rivers and waterways that could give us clean drinking water. Building our own shelters near to natural resources was a better use of our time than carting everything back to a cave a few miles away. once we began to have some semblance of social organisation. Now, in the average fantasy world, this is all very different. Not only are there creatures that don't really care how many people have gathered in small, very flammable huts, like dragons, for instance, there are also threats to our very social fabric, our social organisation. Threats from within, like hags and demons trying to corrupt and taint individuals so that they may act against the wishes of society. And there are shape changers who sleep in our beds, comfortable at night, while plotting society's downfall. Yes, you can put up walls against the outside all you want, but that won't necessarily stop the werewolf within, unless you're able to catch them at the very moment that they pass through one of your choke points, one of your gates. And a werewolf may just scale the walls anyway, and if a dragon flies over and happens to spot your thatched roofs circled in with a tight perimeter wall, well, that just looks like a high-sided cauldron with a whole bunch of kindling. Fundamentally, I do not believe that Fantasy Man would have the same impact on their ecological conditions, specifically their food chains that surround them, as our ancestors did in the real world.
It is interesting to think about because that's why a lot of the time, at least in a lot of world building that you see, it's the combinations of races that work together to build society a lot of the time. Because, having the one to we'll just take humans, I suppose, just in general. If you just have humans, yeah, they can do a bunch of stuff and everything. Great, good. But do they inherently get that magic and such? And the gods obviously are a factor that you have to put in here as well, because they're usually, if not present, somehow involved, right?
Yeah, they're around.
They're around usually. And then you have magic. So the magic element really is the great equalizer a lot of the time, in order to make it so that a lot of the races can live. Because you get the caveman out of the cave. He's running across the field, and then a fucking displacer beast comes around and just gets him. Because it's a displacer beast. What the fuck?
Kind of bullshit.
So it's less that people evolve and more that they are created. You know, they have the spark of the intelligence and everything that you look for in modern day a lot of the time, or close to modern day. That's already been put into them by their creation, or their creator, excuse me. And it's less about learning over time necessarily, usually. Though you can also have that. But usually there's some element that is helping them that is better than the human, right? Better than just the guy who's just like, yeah, I can build a house with wood and shit. But then you've got, I don't know, the elf who comes by and is like, hey, you know magic? And then you're like,
it's pretty fucking cool.
Oh, what the fuck is magic? And then the elf goes, yo, you know the gods and shit? They gave us magic. It's sick. And then they teach.
That sounds like heresy. I'm going to stab you.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then you got some of them that go a little,
Yeah. Then you got the witch trials.
That's right. So yeah, it's a completely different, it is more creationism rather than evolution. It's weird that way. But yeah, it's just something that you kind of have to think of in that way if you want to have your not your backstory, your the history of your world. So that, I mean, again, you can still have it be evolutionary. It's just that you have intervention from the gods usually, or like
intervention from the gods and other races and stuff.
Yeah.
Because some are just better than others at certain things.
Exactly.
And then your human can build basic walls, but you may want a dwarf for your city walls.
Exactly. Right. The cooperation is usually the way that they can progress. And thus spread, oh, this is the god that we worship, and oh, this is the god that we worship, and oh, look, we have this magic, and oh, we have this magic, and trade
We don't
exists.
We don't have any magic.
Yeah, right. And but we can make like wheels and shit. And they're like, oh, technology.
Yo.
Okay. You can have that be a lot of your defining ways, and thus giving the reason why the ruins and all that kind of stuff that came from before are there, so that you can utilize them for your dungeons and such.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I only engaged with it when I wanted as well, but it's still the first thing that pops in my mind. I feel bad for certain YouTubers that had to look at the same picture for months to make videos. Well, they chose to, so.
Yeah.
People leave their houses? Nobody told me that.
Yeah, right?
Unless the dragon has bubble foam instead of fire. True. It's a good point. I need to put more dragons in the world to protect the ecosystems. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like Godzilla's.
That's right. The great equal balancers, or whatever. Cornell or Taliford, hear you say that? In my world, everything could learn magic with or without deities. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's another whole aspect. It doesn't have to be the gods, right? It can just be, we figured out how to do this because I went one day and fire!
Oh my god!
I thought about fire real hard once, and then I just went and then it was out. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in some fiction, you didn't know the gods made you to be fodder for magical beasts? Sad.
Yeah.
Yes. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Pizza Funk. But yeah, so it is just something to keep in, because everything kind of ties together in terms of world building, right? In terms of making these dungeons make sense. You just got to think about keep going, and if it's historically if it's there for a historical reason, or if it's there for a necessity, a current necessity, or a past necessity, like you were saying, for resources and such.
Yeah.
There are creatures that certainly do predate us, regardless of our social organisation or our number. We're not the toughest kid on the block anymore, and I believe that the massive social changes wrought by magic, monsters, and mind control may well change the social fabric of man's organisation fundamentally. Generally, people are fairly smart. We're not going to keep trying to re-establish settlements in open rolling fields near babbling brooks when that makes us a clear and ridiculously easy target for the river spirits, the giants and the dragons in the surrounding area, who merely need to look and see where that large settlement is to have their next few weeks of food. The smartest thing to do when the world is inhospitable is to burrow. One obvious benefit of this is that the massive monsters roaming the world can't squeeze down human-sized burrows very easily, and even if they do so, well, that makes them a lot easier to capture and stab. This is without mentioning limiting yourself to one or two possible entrances, as opposed to the many potential ways to get past walls and gates that exist in a fantasy world. One or two entrances where it is even possible to get down without digging through rock or stone yourself. That's an enticing prospect for a fantasy society. It allows your entrance tunnels to become screening areas to ensure that you're not bringing in any lycanthropes or vampires or anything like that into your fold.
Never heard it called a lycanthrope before.
Yeah, very, very strange pronunciation.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Hold on, are we about to have all the humans move in with the dwarves? Yes.
Yeah,
that sounds like a good idea. I don't see anything wrong with this.
Yeah. Well, so I disagree with the whole, why would we always settle there? It makes us a big target. It makes everything around you a big target as well. If you're on an open field, a dragon is just exposed as that city. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but in the construction of the city, if a dragon should come by, you probably aren't going to be well defended enough to take out a dragon. You know?
That is true, but on the other hand, you're never going to be.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
It's the thing where you have to then think about how feasible it would be for the city to exist. Right?
Yeah, that's the problem.
You have to
like,
think
if you're
about-
already settling in dragon territory,
That's the thing, yes.
Yeah, you kind of, in fantasy worlds, you kind of tend to settle in areas that dragons don't frequent.
Exactly.
You know, red dragons frequent hot, high mountains. Blue dragons are deep, sandy, duny deserts where there isn't anything. That's kind of a common thing with dragons in fantasy, where they don't tend to settle near humans. Or at least in those places where humans are wont to settle.
Right.
Not usually, anyway.
Right. Well, and then it's the question of the lethality of all of the other things around, right? Because he's not talking about just dragons, there's also the other monsters, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so what's the history here? This settlement exists. Okay. How easy was it for them to get established? Right? Is the reason why this was established, was it a joint effort between multiple factions that some knew how to deal with some things and others knew how to deal with other things, and thus they combined to say, oh, we can take out basically anything that's around here because we're working together, you know?
We work together and we are numerous.
Yes. Or is it, oh, we need the things that you guys make, we'll trade you so that we can go and establish a settlement over there and be able to take out those other things so that you guys don't have to go live over there because you don't like it over there, but we can, you know?
Yes.
Like, it's again, you go down the rabbit hole to try to figure out why these things exist. And thus, you're making it so that your world is more fleshed out, it feels more alive and everything. Plus, you get, if that settlement is now abandoned, you get a little history there too. And then, there's reasons why this ancient, artifact is here of a sword that's really good against, I don't know, fucking water spirits in this case. It's like really good against spirits, just in general. It's like, whoa, okay. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
And obviously if we go into dragons as well, it's just like, well, then you have to think about where the dragons are, how much of that is their territory, and then thus you go, oh, okay, do they know that is their territory? Because if they do, then, which they probably would after a certain amount of years, because the dragon roams around it and kills people if they try to go and settle over there. So then, once they do know that, then they go, okay, on our map, we put a little bit of a dotted border around here and go, don't settle over there. Dragon.
Yeah, there be dragons.
There be dragons, exactly. So then you can then have annotations to your maps and such, more information that people can have when they go and get a map. A lot of things.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes, underground, the safe place. Just mind the bullet. Exactly.
Mine the bullet?
Bullet.
Oh, bullet.
Is it pronounced like that?
Yeah, I believe it's bullet, yes.
Oh, okay. I like the idea of magic being a general skill one can learn, practice, and get rusty at if they lose touch with it. Oh yeah, it's a great system to have.
There are just, sorcerers and shit who are just born with it, and they're always, they're assholes about it.
You just need lots and lots of ballista towers. True. Get that dragon out of here. Well, that's the thing.
Where's my Dragonator?
Right, yeah. That's the thing as well. Once the civilizations get sufficiently advanced, do they just hunt dragons?
Yeah.
They could. And thus is like, oh, did they drive away the dragons? What does that mean? Is it obviously it's a vacuum and something else will take its place? Ooh, now you have a worse thing potentially?
Unless you hunt that too.
Well, that's the thing. It's constant evolution of what is the big apex predator, Excuse me.
Until it eventually becomes humans, because it usually always does.
Yeah, could be, for sure. Which is another job for dwarves. Oh yeah, ballista towers. Yep. Maybe invest in mages too. Yep. hold on, guys. I think a world being full of monsters might create a place for adventurers. Oh,
No.
that's crazy. Even though dragons, giants, and undead don't lose overall power level, they can still forget how to use it. Oh, for magic for you? For your world? Fair enough.
Cool.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's wizardy.
Ugh.
The great god Pan is dead and we killed him. Yes, absolutely. Dragonator! Yes.
Fly in over the walls of an evening and just set up shop and go to town. In a world where humanoids are not yet a terrifying, organised, vast, sweeping group that has great organisational power, the world of prehistory, a time of myth, or even right up to the fantasy present day if the monsters are savage and scary enough, the origins of actual civilization and actual civilizational progress would not be found on the surface world. They would be found in tunnels, caves, and in the dungeons that we make for ourselves. And if these are our first, most ancient of settlements, well, who knows what's moved in the meantime.
Okay, so he's not saying that just in general they would be there forever, it's just that's the initial starting point of having those kinds of... Okay. Because, like, if he was saying it as, like... I mean, he did say you could have it be at the present as well, but if he was saying that it was always the case in general, all the time, then it'd be like, well, no, they would get out of there eventually, but no.
I can really hear your fan.
Oh, that's the boiler. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
But yeah, so as long as it's a, because like he said, I mean, in general, things like the sun, like it's pretty cool that like the sun exists sometimes. You know, it makes things warm when you're cold. It's pretty nice. But and also it makes you less depressed, supposedly. But you know, things, a lot of things like the world above a lot of the time, and they will go there for things. So it wouldn't be forever in the caves if they could, because it's also that spirit of adventure that most things have that are sapient. They want to explore, and you would get people that are like, well, let's go up there and make a fucking map of what's going on up there. Maybe we could even live up there. I don't know. You know?
Yeah. It's a nice view.
Pretty neat. It's not walls. It's of rock everywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like there's plants up there that, you know, they don't grow down here. So why not?
So,
yeah. I guess another way for the world to have been hit with a massive demonic invasion in the past that drove civilization underground for a while. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Why would we leave the cave? We yearn for the mines anyway. Oh yeah, absolutely. Send the children to the mines. They yearn for the mines. Yes.
Yeah, I mean they have nice soft bones and tiny bodies.
That's
they can fit
right.
in.
Exactly. They're perfect for the mines.
Yes. Don't even know why that was a question.
Oh, no one was questioning it. Oh, it's just a statement.
Good. Yeah.
Your drill will pierce the heavens. True.
Yep.
So now we have a formula for how the burrowing of people may grow as a massive social necessity in most fantasy worlds. So let's apply it. I will present 3 environments. We're going to look at the challenges and benefits that the environments present, and then design a specific, unique fantasy-style burrow, a human settlement or some sort of humanoid settlement that fits into that environment, while mitigating as many of the dangers as possible. We'll start with a mountain, generally inhospitable and cold, but it is very likely on these rocky faces to find cut-ins and small caves that provide some degree of shelter from the wind and rain and maybe even snow. It's a very good starting point. Depending on magical proficiency, our early settlers may use warding magic or illusion magic to protect their little alcove from prying eyes.
Neat little map.
Yeah.
A dwarven mountain hold. Yeah, fair enough.
As
Why do they
generally
always
in
hold the
fantasy,
mountain?
magic is easier the smaller area it covers,
'Cause it's so big.
better to just use it over a small entrance point to a wider cave that extends beyond. That makes a great deal of sense for the efficiency of magical preservation. The main challenge of this region really is that the rock is really, really tough. Generally, it's bedrock pushed up by tectonic forces. Don't despair for our tunnelers, though. Magic is an incredibly useful tool. The ability to heat and cool things may be all you need to start making a serious dent in rock using rapid freeze-thaw erosion methods. And that's assuming our settlers aren't dwarves, who are basically the undisputed kings of breaking ground. Right. Most settings do have access to some form of basic heating and cooling magic. It's one of the more fundamental magics generally. But if our society, our civilization moving in here has more advancement, then that'll be good too. If we see ultra-durable and legendary materials, adamantine for example, or have explosives to hand, or have some way to magically shape stone, well, this will make moving into a small alcove and expanding it backwards much, much easier. With these sorts of tools or magic or just hard graft, it may be fairly easy to carve terrace farms into the sides of the mountains so that some crops can be grown near where you are, sheltered from the wind as best as possible. Maybe there's even a mountain spring nearby. As they continue carving through stone, our settlers are going to need to ensure that they leave supports to keep everything up and watch out for cracks and fault lines turning and moving away from such areas wherever they find them, ensuring that the place remains relatively stable. And it could be that they stumble upon a natural cave system carved by an ancient river, or stream at least. Over time, natural water could be redirected and moved to create a kind of natural erosion, natural organic-looking structures in time. Large advantages of this style of living are inaccessibility, remoteness, and the potential for defense. Using some crafter's skill or illusion magic or warding magic, you can block off your entire entrance, making it look like this is just another wind-cut notch in the side of the mountain, of which there are hundreds. Using a semi-permanent barrier as well, like some sort of wooden door or a stone rolled in front, would also provide some natural access to airflow, which is another problem for underground living, while ensuring that the biting, cold, driving winds aren't going to make their way inside your settlement and chill everyone to the bone.
So I've been thinking about how, just in general for this, it also helps with thinking about how you could give players at high enough levels the ability to create their own, like, fortresses or dungeons themselves, just a base of operations if they want to, right?
Yeah.
You can justify a lot of this, especially with the whole, in this scenario, we have the mountain, we have the fire and cooling magics and stuff that really makes sense to use as a way to get through easily. And if you can, hell, you could even hire people to do this when you get high enough level, but you give them time and they could construct something like this if they wanted to. Give them something to spend all that fuck ton of money that they'll get, you know, all of that, because that was one of the things that I know, what was it? Matthew Colville and his company made that module. Oh fuck, what was it called? Strongholds and something. And that was like one of the things that everybody kind of wants again of unofficial shit of like, hey, can we just have base building
Rules for
again?
this again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously we don't need them to do it officially, right? We can do it ourselves.
But it would help.
But it would help as a baseline, right?
Yes.
So
a baseline. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think. Fuck.
Yeah.
But yes, so using all of these things, you can then go, oh, the players could do some of this work manually if they wanted to spend the time. You know, you give them their downtime of like a year or however long you want for them to actually create the place. And then it makes it so that they have less that they have to pay for in terms of outside help. And if they want to pay for more outside help just to speed the process up, then you go, okay, yeah, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, as he was saying with like craftsmen and other kinds of things, you can have furnishings and such if the players are skilled enough and they have plenty of time. So,
yeah. And then the best part of that would be after that campaign ends, you could totally have that be a dungeon in the future.
Exactly. The old base that they were there. And if you have that group again and they're in the future, you know, it's like, oh, guys, this
like
was...
whole new characters, maybe like 100 years later or something like that.
And then it's just like, oh, guys, it's still here. Oh, God, it's so dilapidated. Fuck.
Oh, my God, there's a dragon in here.
Oh, my God. You know?
No.
Yeah.
Hey, look,
wait.
This is that weapon I left in the fucking treasure room.
Whoa.
That'd be super cool.
It would be. It would be. So that's just immediately where my brain goes to with it, which is fucking sick. Let's see. Yeah, dragons and giants are born with magic running through their veins, and undead tend to stay stable for a lot, but not being fully alive. And dragons naturally get stronger as they age, so it didn't make sense for those three to lose magical potency, but everyone else can lose both power and potency.
I didn't know that giants were inherently magical.
I think it's just in his world.
Oh.
I found it interesting that no matter how strong you are, you can still forget how to do that thing. Yeah. It is an interesting thing for sure. I like it. Well,
I think that kind of comes back to how at least arcane magic for wizards happens, because at least if you've ever read any of the like Dragonlance books written by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, who are the same people that wrote Ravenloft.
I didn't know that.
Yep. And basically, they describe I forget the name of the series. It's like one of their most famous ones. I think it's The War of the Lance, where there's a wizard character in the party named Reistlin, and he casts spells. And whenever he casts a spell, they always describe it as if like the language of magic, like in his spell book. It's always very spidery, and whenever he casts the spell, that the knowledge just leaves him.
He has that.
That's why
system. Yeah.
Yes, it's that kind of magic system where you have to relearn or read and prep your spells.
Yeah.
So it's like when you read the spell and commit it to memory, it only stays in your memory until you cast it or until you rememorize it, and then when you do, it just kind of escapes you. It's just magic is just weird like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's how you can justify people forgetting spells. Yeah. Where sometimes they'll cast a spell and over time maybe it just, after a very, very long time or due to like advanced age, like the spell just fully leaves and it just escapes them now.
Yeah. They just forgot.
So yeah, you could do it that way, but yeah, it is a touch weird.
But
so is magic.
Exactly. I like the idea of magic being an effort. You know,
magic being an effort.
Yeah. Because like, and you know, you can do it in many different ways, but that's one of the ways of just like, yeah, you got to relearn that fucking shit, dude.
Yeah.
In the Dresden Files, the magic system is it's fueled by obviously your energy level of you being awake, and your emotion as well can also be put into a spell. And you anyone who has the ability to and has the talent can basically just like it's all in your imagination and how you can shape it, and if you can hold on to that and focus really hard. You have to like do a lot of prep for very complicated magic, but you know, things on the fly. One of the spells, in fact, one of Harry's first spells that he ever learns is Flickus Bickus.
Okay.
Because he needed to start a fire. So, and the words don't matter, but they help.
Yes. Okay. I get what. Yeah.
Yeah. So Flickus Bickus is just a very small lighter flame, basically. At least in the beginning,
small little flame. That's funny.
Yeah, and then you can utilize it to just do small fire here and there to like light candles and such, right? And it doesn't take a lot of magic and all that shit. But you can then, once you figure out how to craft the spell, basically, you can do it if you associate it with the word, and it's just it's really fucking cool.
So there is an anime with that exact same magic system.
Yeah.
Where it's, if I don't remember if it's exactly this, but I want to say it was called The Akashic Records of the Bastard Magic Instructor.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a crazy title.
Yeah.
But basically, it's about this magic instructor who goes to this academy to teach people, teach kids, the teens, magic and shit. And he explains how magic actually works, where it's pretty much all, it's exactly like that. It's all imagination, visualization, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to all of the students' knowledge, the chants are absolutely required when they are not.
Yep.
Where he has this girl, one of the main girls, come up and cast a spell that she's familiar with. And he's like, okay, now do your chant and make it do this. And she does her chant, like the very specific chant that lets her spell do that. And then he comes up and he's like, very good. Now, blah, blah, blah. And then he does it exactly the same, and he didn't chant anything at all.
Yeah.
It's really interesting and cool.
Yeah.
And like, the show is honestly really good, despite the kind of isekai sounding title.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny too.
Fair enough.
And I want to say it's getting a second season. I don't remember. It was either that or it was the Misfit of Demon King Academy. It might be that one.
Yeah, I really like that kind of stuff, because it's also tying it to both emotion as well as just energy, in the sense of,
yes,
you have to eat, you have to sleep. If you don't, you'll fucking drain yourself if you do big magic all the time, like, it just it really helps with grounding it in the sense of your limits,
Yes.
And obviously outside influence can help, in the sense of, like, if something is like an area is charged with fear, right? Like, there's a lot of people around who are just afraid, like, so many that it's like it's in the air basically and can use it. Stuff like that. That's where cool. It's like, yeah, that's another part of the magic system, which is, and it's like, yeah, obvious, yeah, for sure, okay, but like, once all that fear is gone, well, you're on your own power, so
yes,
you can't do the big shit as much anymore, but you can still do stuff. And then if you
it is cool.
One last thing, just if you get exhausted, you can't do shit. You're fucked.
Yes,
which is great.
I like that it is leaning into you needing inner power to correctly manipulate that external power.
Yes,
I like that.
Yes, for sure. Dresden Files are great books, man. Absolutely fantastic. I can't wait for the new one in April, I want to say.
Oh, it is still coming out. That's good.
Yeah, he's still working on it, and I'm super happy, because there's so much that can happen. I want to see what happens really badly.
And it's not like George R.R. Martin.
No.
It's like, oh, I wrote a really good book and I'm just never going to finish it.
Yep. That's right. But the other thing is, like, if you make your stories at least self-contained so that they can end, that's good.
That's nice.
That is nice.
Relatively small rooms with lots of angles turning and turning off would help mitigate this ingress of horrible, harsh winter winds, as well would hanging heavy fur curtains, or curtains more generally, to break up spaces, making sure that everyone stays at a reasonable temperature, while having the ability to quickly open the curtains if airflow needs to be coming in or smoke needs to be going out. Heavy curtains would also help stop mining noise from escaping, as well as the expansion continues, as settlers can dig further into the rock to create new spaces. Let's now see what happens if our humanoids really want to live
that
as
would
close
actually
as
be
possible
super
to some
neat
natural
to
amenities.
do that
We're
in real
talking
life, where you have a cave or a city or a settlement in that kind of area, and they're like, hey, I'd love to move in. It's like, all right, here you go, fucking settler, get to digging, dig your own house.
Get digging.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah. There was what was it? I remember seeing a video, I think it was from Cold Ones, actually. If you know them. They went to somewhere, I think it was them. And part of the Australian, I think it was Australia. Anyway, this place that they went to, they had underground like buildings basically, and they were made specifically into caverns that the rock walls and everything were carved out, and it was really cool in there because, it's really hot in the summers and such because of the open space and direct sunlight. And they use that natural cooling and everything, and it would be really fucking sick to just be able to do that. Part of me is like, for my house, I'm like, I have a crawl space, but man, do I want a basement. And part of me is like, I could dig that up, maybe.
You could dig it, but you would fuck up your own home.
Yeah. I would have to get somebody else to actually
you need a pro.
Yeah, for sure. There was this one other. This is reminding me of another thing. This other thing that I saw. Somebody covered a person on. I think it was on TikTok or something. And the person just started digging under their house to expand their basement, and then just started digging a fucking cave system. And just started doing that, and then eventually got shut down because of permits and stuff, and not being an actual like engineer, I think,
excavator or anything.
Unfortunately, though, I think the person was doing pretty well and like doing things structurally sound, at least enough.
That's good.
But they got shut down, so it was unfortunate. But
shame.
Yeah, it was a whole thing, like literally getting the equipment to dig and everything, and getting a whole bunch of like rock and everything out of there. It was insane.
Yeah. Where was that?
I don't remember. I can probably find it actually really quick. Hold on.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see, but also like people were like, "Are you gonna be okay? What if it like caves in?"
No, and I'll just die then.
Well, I think it was a woman who who was like, yeah, no, I'm doing a lot of research, and I'm making sure that the caves are set up fine and everything. Like legitimately, she was doing it.
Yeah, that's funny.
Caving.
Cave woman.
Yeah, really. I don't. Under home. Maybe that'll help. Yeah. Okay. Lady digging a cave under her house. That's literally.
That sounds accurate.
Tunnel girl. There you go. I can't. Oh, who was the actual? Oh. Yeah. Here we go. I think. Yeah, engineering everything. I think that was the account. And she was just like digging. I think that was. And then she got shut down, unfortunately. But she looks like she's still just going out to dig other things.
Okay, well at least there's that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just going out at a random place.
Yeah,
and just
why
digging.
not? I don't know, but like, that's sick.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
cool.
Yeah. She started doing it. It's fucking cool. Anyway,
yeah, that's one hell of a hobby.
That's right. Anyway,
So what do you do in your spare time? I dig caves.
Yeah, really.
You mean like you go to caves? No, I make caves. Fuck yeah.
It's sick. It was really cool. Let's see. I'll end up setting up a fortified textile factory. There you go.
Yeah.
I saw the dragon versus giant feud, and I wanted to have them to have similar characteristics. Oh, fair enough.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That's cool.
If magic's fueled by the energy of being awake, I'm in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alejo has none. Oh wait, no, he has all of it.
I do have a lot of it sometimes. Yes. Though I will say, yesterday I came home and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to do stuff that I need to do, and then I sat down and then I fell asleep.
Yep.
Because I was like, oh, I'm relaxed, and then
I want to do stuff.
Yeah.
Nope.
It was fucked.
Fuck off.
Yep. That was me. Hey, I'm ready for magic today, I guess.
Yep.
Anyway, both of them being highly in tune with magic seem cool. They branch off from there. Yeah, good.
That's cool.
Don't confuse Flickus Bickus with Biggest Dickus.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, grounding the magic is important. I hope my skill and memory-based system does that okay. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, at least, as long as it's something like that, and obviously if you have the beings that can just, not...
that just can do it.
Yeah, and it just, for those ones, that's the case, then it's like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. You can have elementals because, they're basically just living magic, effectively.
True. I can only imagine disaster if my dwarves in Dwarf Fortress were left to dig their own houses. Fair. Plus, since undead dragons and giants live the longest, it makes sense they would be the strongest given enough time. Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It depends on the kind of undead, because obviously you've got some that just... Ironically, you've got, like, a lot of undead that, they live almost forever, but they don't actually think, and even the ones that do just don't think beyond, God, I hate everything that's alive.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, you've got, like, wraiths who are, like, perfectly capable of thought and shit, but that thought is just...
Yeah.
A beautiful lush forest filled with fruit trees heading down to a gorgeous meandering river. Living in a bunker by a river is a challenge. One of the main challenges is how close you are to the water table.
God damn it. When he said that, I thought it was... living in a bunker by a river is a challenge, and is just one of the challenges that you'll face in Raid Shadow.
Oh, God.
I could have it sounded like it was going to become an ad
That
read,
would be
dude.
So funny. Oh, my God.
That would have been hilarious.
Haven't heard a fucking Raid fucking Shadow Legends ad in forever, man.
I know.
I'm so
The game
glad.
is still going so strong, it's insane.
I know, but nobody needs to promote it at all anymore.
Yeah.
It's
so funny.
It's already got its people. Oh, shit.
Yep.
What? There we go. I accidentally hit back. All right.
Oh.
Flooding. Soil and dirt can get sodden, flood, and fall apart fairly.
Sorry for the Garrett Bay jump scare, everybody. That was the last video that we watched. So.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Easily.
Not again.
When it's so closely proximal to water, especially when we're dealing with tunnels big enough to house a person. I believe, however, that access to fire magic, or kiln technology, is all that such a settlement might need to fully embrace the riverside life. Because Earth is relatively easy to excavate, it can also collapse relatively easy as well. One solution may be to coat the dirt with a sort of lime wash or some sort of proto-cement. But another solution utilises the river, utilises the river's clay. You would need to be in a clay region, of course, for all of this. But utilises that to create bricks or slates that can be placed on the walls to try and keep some of that water out. You lay these kiln-fired clay bricks or tablets into the walls to help both keep water out and support the structural integrity of the spaces that you're digging under the forest and under the dirt more generally. Now, clay bricks are not inherently very waterproof, but if you add more of clay into the ratio of construction alongside some sand and straw, you can aid in the waterproofedness of these bricks that you're placing into your walls. If the interior of this space is then fixed with a sort of wax, paraffin, tallow, some sort of fat or oil to treat it and make sure it's more waterproof, and then probably also fire treated to seal that in, you could create a reasonably impenetrable wall structure with not too much effort. The only disadvantage, of course, would be the smell of burned animal fat sticking to all of your walls, which might be deeply unpleasant, and a kind of dark copper blood red colour that might emerge from all of this. Which
one of the things that I actually think about for this specific picture, in fact, even is the airflow situation, right?
Yes.
Because I'm trying to see how the air is supposed to get in and circulate, you know?
Yeah.
Because like,
well, I mean, you can certainly get the air in through the chimneys and
Yeah.
stuff, and you wouldn't always have a fire burning.
yeah,
so
that's
there's at least that.
That's true. Because I'm thinking about it, since I do have some underground settlements, though they are, at least in my world, that I've made for the fantasy setting thing that I have. But it's mostly used by undead a lot of the time. But I also am thinking about the ones that are in the mountains and such, that I have for my orcs, that I assume they would have something like that with the, because I don't know how it works, I guess, you know, in the sense
What,
of
just like airflow situation?
yeah, because it go down just naturally, you know?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, air fills vacuums.
That is true.
As long as you don't have a fire burning like actively, because then hot air go up.
True. I'm just thinking, because I know, you know, pressure systems, right? They help create the wind. So hot air or high pressure hits low pressure to then move, or move the air, right? And I'm wondering if the outside of the underground fortress is lower pressure or higher pressure, right? To see if that is why the wind will go, or the air will then go down as wind, or will it just be a thing that just filters down more gently,
More
I
naturally.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, you would need to look into certain architectural styles, because
Yeah.
I know that there is. Okay, so when they started doing more and more office buildings in America, something that they found that was a problem was they wanted to use a lot of glass, and you know, still tend to do. But the problem is that glass gets fucking hot.
True.
And when they would build those buildings, like, hey, this building looks really nice and it's very effective and blah, 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 but it was super fucking hot.
Yes.
And that was a big problem. So, what they did was there were a pair of brothers, I don't remember their names, but they were like super duper architects.
Okay.
And they essentially made these buildings where they still had a decent amount of glass on the outside, but they were essentially, think of it like a hollow square tube.
Okay.
And you had these big entryways, big open entryways on the bottom floor that went, you know, you can access all the rooms and all the everything from that bottom floor level. But there was also a small courtyard in the center of the building that led up to the roof. And it was just an open tube. And for whatever reason, using that style, or something close to that style, because I'm probably remembering it slightly inaccurately, having the air be able to go to flow freely through the building on the bottom floor and then access the inner courtyard, the air would actually flow down and up through those tubes and perfectly cool the building naturally.
Oh, okay.
And then there are also lots of other different, you know, passive cooling, passive airflow systems in a lot of Middle Eastern
That is true.
architecture and stuff like that. So that's what I would look into.
Yeah, I just...
because I'm no architect.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, neither am I. And like, I know it's possible, so like, I don't necessarily need to explain it, but I want to, you know.
Fair enough.
So it's just one of those things, just to also just further my own knowledge of it. Alejo, we get heirs via slave children and pumps. Oh, yeah. That's true. Have them push the big wheel. Always push the big wheel. Why are we pushing the big wheel? Shut up and push the big wheel.
That is not for you to know.
Exactly.
Simply continue pushing.
Exactly. Just get the slave children to go outside, take deep breaths, then come back inside and breathe them back out. Yeah, that's the way. There we go. But yeah, no, it's just very interesting. Vampires and liches carry most of the weight for the undead, but sometimes zombies and others could surprise you. Never want a whole class of beings to just be one thing. No matter how long you have to look to find a zombie that could beat a lich in a magic duel. Fair. Fair enough.
That would be fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Could actually be quite cool. Due to the impressive insulation of the ground, and indeed clay as well, our settlers may find themselves not very cold at winter and not very warm in the summer, which is kind of ideal. But if they're doing their kiln firing underground and also cooking underground, generally living there, they're going to need some way to hide and expel their smoke from fires. When building more walls for your base requires fire, requires a whole damn kiln, this is a really significant consideration. Vertical chimneys seem like a reasonable solution for the egress of smoke, and this space here is wooded. It's woodland, meaning that the smoke is likely to get choked up a little bit by the canopies of trees and bark more generally, and moss and lichen and all the sorts of things that may gather on the forest floor, may act as some sort of capture for the worst of the soot, and not demonstrating the whole position of the settlement just by rings of smoke rising into the air. But if you have open vertical chimneys leading up to woodland, what happens in autumn when the trees start losing their leaves and they all start to gum up your pipes, your chimneys, meaning you're smoking yourself in? It's not great. So there would need to be some sort of cowl on top of each of the chimneys, probably a cylindrical cone, probably made of clay, again, as this is the main focus, the main craft of these peoples. These should be raised off the forest floor enough that, fallen leaves aren't going to clog the whole thing up, or at least regularly cleared. And it's not going to be perfect. They will still be visible above the ground, but hopefully inside the forest floor, not really a key target for many creatures that are intelligent enough to know what these clay cones actually are. Earthworks and levees would be really important as well, to be built by the river, just to ensure that your lovely chimneys that take all of the soot out of your home don't then become access points for floodwater to drown you inside your lovely waterproof clay walls. So an underground complex built around pottery and brickmaking and claycraft more generally, using clay and water from the river and fruits from the trees around you, probably not the ones directly above your chimneys. All of your walls treated with a roasted boar tallow from the local woods to create a rich, deep, waterproof red clay interior. Perhaps these treated bricks may even create kind of a darkened reflections or strange interactions with light, allowing the flickering of flame to be even more pronounced and religious, as a religious symbol, than it was in even our history, when fire was a almost universal symbol of some degree of deity or faith or spirit. This sounds like a twist on a traditional dungeon archetype to me, especially if, over the many hundreds of years it's been, say, abandoned, the clay bricks have started to crack from pressure from roots above them, or the coatings have started to wear, water has been making its way in, turning it into a semi-underwater, semi-swampy, stagnant environment, instead perfect for some sort of horrid hag. Perhaps the monsters that have moved in are at odds with the fire spirit in the kiln, who remembers the old days where the great kiln fireman was the religious centre of this entire space, where he had the great magical power of flame and was chosen by the gods for his profession and his craft. Maybe the fire elemental spirit in this kiln hates with a passion the ingress of these fetid, horrid creatures. Lastly, a plains region filled with...
By the way, I don't mean to just let the thing play, but I'm waiting to get to the next bit, you know? And it's all good. This is all fantastic. I'm loving it. It's all good stuff to utilize and think about, just to make your settlements and your old ruins more realistic, as we've been talking about it. So highly recommend going and checking out this channel now, because this is incredibly intellectual, which I'm like, oh yes, good. Make me think more about my world for sure. And can be applied
this is up
to
there with
a lot of
Rick
shit.
and Morty, intellectual.
God damn it. With all these hostile creatures, at what point are you just trying to live on Catachan, though? Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Don't you know? All fantasy is Catachan.
Oh, please no.
relatively malleable volcanic ash-formed rock that goes down for many, many layers of sediment. Probably caused by ancient volcanic activity, this ash-turned rock is relatively porous and relatively easy to carve into, unlike our first example where rock carving was the main challenge. With some volcanic ash-based soil on the top, this makes for some really, really solid land for farming as well. As this rock is comparatively light and carvable, we might see larger complexes of winding tunnels in a slightly more natural fashion, as tools don't need to be so advanced to carve through it, making all sorts of scrapes and signs on the walls themselves, which might be smoothed by history or hands or feet running across them over centuries. We could see traditional structures like shrines or churches created here in reverse, carved and hollowed out in the image of these great cathedrals or churches, instead of built the other way round. And it wouldn't take the most durable tools in the world to slice through this rock, which, due to its not massive weight but still fairly solid structure, may find itself pretty well suited for being carved into multiple leveled dungeon. It's likely that a large complex like this would use large kind of circular millstones made of the same material, light enough to shift, to block off entire tunnels in case of attack, to confuse.
How do people ever think Rick and Morty was for smart people? It was always really simple when you looked at it.
It was always really simple and stupid. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it had, you know, it had depth, but it was the meme, right? It was just the meme. That was it.
Yeah, because some people got some of the jokes that were actually pretty up there.
Yeah.
And they're like, God, I'm so intellectual. I get every joke in this show.
Exactly. It's like, oh,
it's just funny.
Wowee, good job.
It's just funny to reference that.
Yeah. It became a meme of the meme, you know?
Yes.
Right? Because it's just making fun of those people who literally believe in the meme.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, dude.
It's great.
And thwart invaders, maybe even moving in for a pincer movement using some secret tunnels round the other way. It may well be a confusing maze. Upper floors may even be used for the storage of farmed goods or animals, brought down in the case of bad weather or in the case of a raid coming towards the surface. And if torchlight, candlelight or oil light was undesirable, although they probably would have some sort of fat-based light if they're keeping animals on the surface, we could see magical light employed. We could see some faith-based structure built around light, as very little would make its way down into these tunnels, where clerics are the ones who move through with light and can grant it to faithful followers for hours or minutes at a time. Especially in a region filled with porous volcanic rock, ventilation shafts, being not terribly wide, may go unnoticed for quite a long stretch of time, assumed to just be another hole in the hole-filled rock below your feet. They may even go unnoticed.
So that at least gives me the idea, because I was using literal ventilation shafts in my thing, just saying that they were a thing. So if that's just a thing that works, then I'm good.
Yeah, it
Sick.
can. Yeah, it certainly can be.
Yeah. Because I was just like, I mean, for the undead settlements that I had underground, it was like, yeah, you can go really deep, and that's where like a lot of them live. But like higher up, they keep things to feed on, right? Because it's easier to have a ventilation shaft that goes only so far,
Yes, exactly.
rather than having
it's
it
easier
go...
to dig a ventilation shaft that goes 100 feet rather than
Yes,
3,000 feet.
exactly. So I was just like, yeah, I mean, you can go down there if you're like a human, sure, but like it'll get real hard to breathe when you go down deep enough. You're not meant to go down there. Don't you dare.
Yeah.
It's one for security as well as just a sprawling metropolis, quote unquote. Dragon plushie in the back is pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Neat. I'm waiting for like I guess we're not getting a map for this one, which is fine. I don't need a map for all of them, but I wanted to see a visual representation. Be nice.
Noticed for hundreds of years, even while the surface is occupied. It's very possible that a seemingly innocuous surface community may be maintained, or indeed an entire surface community which moves down into these tunnels, these spaces, under times of great stress or warfare, or some sort of grand ecological disaster. But the maintenance of a small settlement on the surface and taking down most of the animals into the tunnels themselves, probably just the top layer of it, because otherwise they'd start to panic, would be an excellent cover for any regular raiders or warfare that may come your way, to protect most of your valuable goods downstairs while offering a sort of semi-soft target that may well be passed over if it is deemed to not be interesting or profitable enough to fight. It may, in this case, in a vast open volcanic plain, be impossible to mask the fact that there are humans or civilization living in this region, through the farmland, through the animals that don't want to go down, through some sort of surface-dwelling settlements or trade posts. It may be...
My immediate thought was with the animal thing, it was like, yeah, you could get some, but not all, for sure, because not everything is okay with being enclosed, Yeah. But I also was like, how do you hide that in the sense of you could bring them down like a ramp or something, like a specifically carved tunnel, I guess, into a specific area to hide them away. But isn't that tunnel going to be really noticeable depending on the size of the animals, right? Like, you get cows down there. Those are fucking big,
Yeah. It depends. Depends on if you're willing to build that tunnel to do that.
Yeah.
And you want to keep it a secret. I think you could probably find a way to keep it a secret somehow.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, yeah, you could obviously employ magic. That's the easy way out, but I'm like thinking for if this is supposed to be like a ruin, if this is supposed to be a dungeon later on, is it that at some point they just got wiped out because they stopped having the magic man, or is it like they put a stone in front of it like you were saying before for the mountainside, but you don't really get... I mean, you could probably carve one out, but how do you make it look more natural, I guess? It's not like it's impossible. I'm just trying to think of the logistics, because it's like, how did they not survive? Or is this one of the things that they did survive and they just went, ooh, we're gonna get out of here, Or is this just a people that just continued to be underground forever, Yeah,
it could be just that. And it could also be like those kinds of... it's really common in Lovecraft where, you have these super advanced civilizations like the serpent people that live underground.
Yeah.
But then they just start to slowly deteriorate and become, inbred and all gross and shit.
It could very well be that, for sure.
So they could be completely good at all that. And then just over time, they just degenerate.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about, I guess, more so, because it's not like it has one answer, So I was just for a moment thinking.
We'll stop that.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah, don't worry, I fucking know.
Wouldn't humans turn into Morlocks like this though? They could. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the other thing. Could some of these proto humans or proto just folk in general, could they like evolve over time to then just be the monsters that they find, right? Like exactly. It's one of those other things that you can utilize as how it's still being or how it's still lived in. It's just like, oh yeah, these were the people from before, and now they're here. Oh, it's just a very easy way to do it as well. Another bit of world building that you can just throw at people and go, look, these used to be human. It's like, oh god, yeah, they've been under here for fucking thousands of years.
They became.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's honestly, it's not a bad way to just make your custom race of things if you want.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. New idea. How about a kingdom of actual mole people that dig huge tunnels and stuff? Yeah, absolutely. Sounds kind of like the vaults from Fallout. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, anything like that. Like we were saying before, the Metro stuff, right? Like,
yep.
Underground shit is cool.
Mm-hmm.
You then have things that adapt to being underground.
Yes.
It's fucking cool.
And then what? Now, another option, again, it's almost as if we're playing Lord of the Rings game.
What do you mean?
Maybe they dug too deep.
Maybe they dug too deep. Yeah.
Maybe they dug too deep.
They could never do that, though. That's insane.
Yeah, I don't think they ever
would.
You know, why would they? No,
they would get a desolation.
People aren't naturally greedy.
No. People don't want cool things. Come on.
No.
That's dumb.
What?
Why would you want cool
That's
things?
ridiculous. I have no idea what you're talking about.
No idea.
Yeah.
Impossible to mask that. So the next best option for these people may well have been to create a larger subterranean society to protect their most valuable assets and themselves in times of trouble. Show raiders an abandoned town and very little left, and they may not think too much about the solidified ash under their feet. But why have I not got a lovely hand-drawn map of this place sitting next to me in frame? Was it too hard to draw winding tunnels through volcanic ash going down, up to 85 meters, supporting 20,000 different people at once? Well, largely there isn't an illustration here because there doesn't really need to be one. This final dungeon location is in fact an entirely faithful description of the underground city of Dedinkuyu. This is a complex which began construction in our real world over in Cappadocia about 2,000 years ago. And it was such a good hiding spot from raiders and aggressors that it was lost for well over 100 years, rediscovered in 1963 by a farmer who wanted to figure out how his chickens were escaping from his basement. Humans are smart, as I said earlier, and
that's so cool.
That's crazy.
No idea. That's this video is great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm loving it. I'm learning things. I'm gonna forget this, but
oh yeah,
but like super cool that has the real world example for sure. Holy shit. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with digging too deep?
I like the build up to it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Describing it in such a way that it's like, oh yeah, that absolutely makes sense and could be a thing in a fantasy world too. Yeah, for sure. And it's just like,
and bam!
Guess what?
Turns out it's fucking real.
We did it. We did it, everybody, and it was fucking lost forever, and that's awesome.
100 years. Forever. Alejo,
The
2025.
toughest of environments and the most difficult of political situations. We will live and work our entire lives carving through rock if it helps us feel safe and comfortable and helps our future.
Look at that door. Or at least
That's
I
awesome.
assume that's a door that you can just roll into the way.
Yeah, it's either a door that you roll into the way or it's like a rotating seal,
Might be. Yeah. It has the hole in it so that it can still have air go through it, So that's man. Cool.
That's super cool.
Very cool. You also have big insects that build tunnel networks. You could do a lot with that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is basically an ant farm, but for people.
Yeah.
Like we did it. We did it, everybody. We became ants.
Generations to survive. And in worlds where surface pressures force us down, inhospitable fantasy wastelands, dragons, marauding bands of orcs, there is no doubt in my mind that before we get the magical tools to fight back fairly, before we are a world-spanning civilizational force, that fantasy humanoids would take to the earth. And there will be many more types of burrows than these 3 we discussed today in the meantime. And once, as often happens in fantasy, the men take the surface back from these primeval and primordial forces, forcing them into the shadows instead, well, where on earth will they retreat to? Where better for the monsters that once ruled the earth to go than the refuges of those people whose civilization they almost stamped out on so many occasions, hiding in the ruins and remnants of our old settlements under the ground, in the rocks, or up carved into mountains, creating their own alterations, ecologies and societies down in those settlements which we were so desperate to leave behind, to stand on the surface freely. And that's it. That's my argument for video game style dungeons cropping up in every conceivable environment on your fantasy world, with a different theme, environment and colour scheme every single time. I hope you've enjoyed today's little thought experiment.
I have.
And if you'd like to see more, then do like, subscribe and all the wonderful other YouTube stuff. But with all that said, I've been Tom, otherwise known as the Grungeon Master. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, absolutely. Go check the Grungeon Master. He's got almost 30K subscribers, so good on him. Very good.
Yeah.
Honestly, fantastic video.
Yes.
I learned, as well as had good thoughts because of it. Very good.
Yes.
Very good. Well, speaking of more dungeons,
Oh my god.
I found a second video that seemed equally interesting.
Okay. Fuck all dungeons, I take it?
No.
Oh.
This one is just called How to Create a Sandbox Dungeon.
Okay.
My brain went, huh?
Hmm?
Because I don't associate dungeons with sandbox, you know?
Yeah. So I know of one method that's used. It was a Seth Skrzykowski video where it takes a little bit of work on the DM's end, but it's really neat.
Okay.
Basically, you get you can take like note card and note card paper.
Yeah.
And then draw dungeon tunnels and dungeon rooms on those things and make it so that they can link up with one another properly when you put the cards next to one another.
Okay.
And as you go through the dungeon, you draw a card from the pile and lay it there. So like, we go through the eastern tunnel. You draw the card and then bam, that's the eastern tunnel that you just entered. And you actually build the dungeon as you go through it.
Okay. A real-time generated dungeon, really.
Yes, exactly.
Very
and so, you come up with those tunnels and shit, and then you just shuffle them into a deck. So that way it truly is random when you're making it, but you have like a set selection of rooms that it could be.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. That's a really neat idea, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I guess it doesn't evoke sandbox to me, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, it's not really a sandbox.
But it is a neat way to do it for sure. Yeah, because sandbox is usually just you can go whatever, wherever, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it does make sense that would be a way to do it with those note cards, because you could go whenever, wherever, all the time, and you would find things here and there, and you wouldn't necessarily know what you could find. But I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's in the spirit of Sandbox, if that makes sense.
No, that's fair.
But that's just, I don't know. For some
because
reason,
it's not technically a sandbox.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're still predefined in what you will find a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not a bad thing. I just don't see how we can do it. Which I'm hoping that this video will show us. So this is how to create a sandbox dungeon from JP Couvert. So there you go. We'll see, I suppose, how we're meant to do this, because I would love, I would love for my brain to be expanded in this way, because it would fit me better, honestly, if I could do this.
Your brain would fit you better?
Yeah, my brain is too small. If it gets expanded a bit more, it'll fit me better.
Okay.
I tried to create a sandbox dungeon as a child, but it just kept collapsing immediately. There you go.
Sounds like a rookie mistake.
Indeed.
I had a big fuck off. Like, my dad has been an organic gardener for basically all my life.
Oh, cool.
And so we had like lots of garden beds, and me and my brother would go out into beds that weren't being used, and we would dig like fucking overpasses and underpasses and shit, and put army soldiers in them, and fucking have huge, awesome battles.
Awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Just make a sandbox setting at a dungeon scale, maybe. It could be. That's the thing. I'm also thinking something like a mega dungeon, in the sense that everything exists in a dungeon, technically. You know, you have cities and towns and all that kind of shit. But that also isn't necessarily in the spirit of a sandbox, right? But I don't know. It could be a sandbox if they made a full video game of D&D or Pathfinder. Yeah, that would have to be, basically. I mean, they did Baldur's Gate 3, right? But but if they want to do something that's in the spirit of what D&D and stuff like specifically are, like a TTRPG,
like actually is.
Yeah, they would have to make it so that, but you can't. You just can't.
Yeah, it's just too big.
It's too much. You can do anything in D&D, so or any TTRPG, really. Thinking of a Super Metroid randomizer right now. Fair. Or like the Stardew Valley mine, that works too.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Let's make a dungeon, but make it sandboxy.
Cool. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Get it straight to the point.
I've been thinking a lot about how I personally like to run tabletop role-playing games, and I like writing and running adventure modules. You know, it's fun to have a plan and see how the players react to it. But I've realized that I have the most fun when I, the game master, don't know what's going to happen next.
Sure.
When the players and I are both surprised, that's the most exciting stuff. And to me, that sounds like a sandbox style of game. Give the players some plot hooks, have a few locations and NPCs figured out, and then just go for it. Start playing. Now, I've never really figured out how to successfully run my own sandbox game. I'm not the best at improvising, so that can make trusting myself to create a fun game on the fly kind of tricky. And on the flip side, if I prepare too much, there won't be any of those fun surprises to experience at the table. So I was
it is. Sandboxing is hard.
Yes,
for sure. And yet it's my preferred style of play.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult mix of prepping and not prepping.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It I don't know why it fits so well with my brain, but it does. And like literally whenever we play Vampire next, I have some stuff planned out that is going to happen, at least in some degree. But I also have these elements that I am going to have both Boo and Brogan change because of certain choices that they could make. But it's ultimately like I have no idea how it's going to turn out. I have no clue whatsoever where this will go necessarily. I just have a vague idea of where it might lead. And I have vague ideas of how it could influence the overall everything.
Yes.
But I just need those specifics. And it's just, I would rather have the specifics set in stone by my players rather than me. And it obviously that's how you do most of everything in a TTRPG, really. But it's just, it's that vagary of, well, I know I have my guidelines here. I literally, as he was saying, I have specific NPCs that I have made that are the important ones. But if, like, Gale, for those of you who have watched so far, because you would know about him at this point, Gale was just a guy. It was just, he was never in my plan whatsoever. He was just there as a person, and they found him, and then he became more relevant. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
And like, he, who knows what's gonna happen because of him now? You know?
Yeah, no, it's a thing now.
Yeah, it's just a thing now, and now I can account for that a little bit here and there. It's a whole, like, it's great. I fucking love it. And it's one of those another one of those cases where when you guys decide to do something, I'm like, ooh, whoa, because I can at least take like 2 minutes to Google something when you guys are like, I want to go this way, and I'm like, okay, and you know,
give me a second.
Yeah,
okay.
As I'm doing it, and then it's just like, okay, yeah, and then I just kind of go with it. And again, it's definitely not for everyone, because as even I've already forgotten, JP, I will go with, as JP here has said, if you're not that, you know, good at improv, it's going to be harder for you to do these things on the fly, obviously.
Yes.
But it's not something that's necessary, right? If you want to do the adventure modules or strict linear kind of things, absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that. I love doing them too. They're great. It's nice to not have to worry about a lot of things.
Yeah, like, there's a reason why they're so popular.
Yeah. The next time that our group plays Delta Green, I want to do an actual module. Because one, it's really cool to me, and two, I don't have to do as much fucking work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. But like with now that I'm thinking about it, I guess for the dungeon, I'm starting to understand a bit more of like, yeah, you can do it, like you can set up that basic guideline of what it is. But then, you know, as they go through, you might introduce different elements, / they might ask about different elements that you would then go, oh yeah, that would be there. Yeah. Why not? And then change it that way, I guess. But I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Diablo? Yes, Diablo for sure.
Watching this Bob World Builder video about random encounters, and he mentioned the idea that really got my gears turning. And I think I figured out a way to run a sandbox style of game and not get too bogged down with too much prep. Now in the video, Bob mentions having one of the random encounter tables be roll 2, and how I never thought of this, I don't know, it's so genius. And the idea is so simple. Let's say you have a D6 encounter table. The players move into a new area of the map, and you have one of them roll on this encounter table, roll a D6. On a 1, they encounter a troll. On a 2, a gang of goblins. On a 3, there's a pack of undead wolves. On a 4, maybe they meet a traveling merchant. On a 5, they stumble across a half-buried treasure chest. And if they roll a 6, here's the fun part. They roll again, but twice, and take both of the options. So maybe they roll a 2 and a 5. They won't just be fighting some goblins or finding some treasure. They'll stumble upon some goblins trying to dig up this treasure chest. Or maybe even worse, they roll a 1 and a 3. Now they have to confront a troll and a pack of undead wolves. So maybe the players get caught in the middle of it, or maybe they're able to turn one of them against the other.
So, while I like the idea, if you're using random encounter tables, obviously, which no shame if you do. I don't prefer to myself, but I am. I would if it was something to. We talked about random encounters. Aiden and I did. We talked about how you can utilize them as kind of a stopgap if you don't have something prepared for if, like, instead of going north, your party goes due east, you know, and they just start going towards something, and then it's like, oh, okay, I need a couple of minutes to prepare, or maybe an hour when they're fighting an encounter. I'll roll something up, and throughout that time, I'll keep track of what they're doing, but I can also, like, prep a little bit here to really figure out what's going on. And it's good. It's good as a used for that. I assume where we're going with this for the dungeon aspect is you basically make encounter tables and roll on them for the dungeon.
Yeah.
Which, fair enough, I guess. Sure.
Yeah, I think my only issue with it is that you would then need to make encounter tables for all the different kinds of dungeons that you intend to make.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much I would want to do that, you know?
Yeah, that sounds like a bit of a pain,
like,
to be honest.
It's fine if you want to put in the work, obviously, but, like, for me, I would rather, if I were to put a dungeon in there, and if I wanted it to actually fit into where they are, then I guess I would kind of plan it out a bit more, you know? Because a dungeon is ultimately kind of a set piece itself, right?
Yeah.
And you giving it the history, the adversaries that you might find, the puzzles, the traps, the tricks, all of this stuff tells a story in itself. And it can also potentially, like, link up to the main story if you have one going at this point, you know, the overall campaign potentially. Or it could be a whole side thing that could give them something interesting that might help them with their future endeavors. You know, they find, a magic sword, or it's a bracer that gives you a little bit more defense against specific things. Woo! You know, like, anything could be found there. Which is why I would prefer to make it so that it's planned out. Because then it could also fit this party a bit more, rather than doing it randomly. Like, as I've said, I like doing sandbox games, but again, if you go into this specific dungeon, like, if that's your goal, then I feel like I should prep that dungeon for you, right? Rather than wing it a bit. I don't know. It's that weird dichotomy that I have with how I would do sandbox stuff. I thought of a roguelike for random dungeons, kind of like Hades. Yeah. Can we have a sandbox grungeon inhabited by drugons? Yes. Absolutely.
Yes, we can.
I would make the table bigger, use 2 1d20 sided dice for a maximum of 240 total encounters. Yeah, you could.
Jesus.
You absolutely could. That's the thing. Like, again, this is definitely a good way to do it, I think. It's just not the way that I would do it. You know? It's not something that I would want to put that effort into, in the sense of having to make a bunch of encounter tables, because you could make it so that they're themed towards the dungeon, but you also still have to figure out, you know, placements and stuff, and I don't know, it doesn't feel, it feels weird to me to, instead of having this room is dedicated to being a potential puzzle, to then say, no, I'm just gonna roll and see, maybe it could be a puzzle, maybe it could be like a bunch of goblins, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it's just, it doesn't hit the same good feeling in my brain.
Whole roll 2 thing just makes it so much more interesting. So with all that in mind, here's my idea. What if we wrote a one-shot dungeon where, instead of planning out what happens in each room, you write up a bunch of random tables, all stuff that fits with the story of this dungeon, but you never actually know what's going to happen in each location of the dungeon.
Sure.
So, you'd still be planning out each room and a bunch of encounters, but you just don't know what's going to happen where. It's like you've improvised a sandbox, but you've also prepared efficiently and feel confident in being able to run a fun game. Okay, so every month I write and illustrate a new tabletop role-playing game adventure for my Patreon.
Neat.
And
looks
this month
cool.
I've decided to work on a one-shot with this sandbox idea.
I love the
I thought
art.
it'd be
Yeah,
fun
all the
to
art is great.
take you through the process of writing this thing and hopefully inspire you to make your own sandbox dungeon. Okay, like every other time I'm writing up a dungeon, I start by just writing out some notes. I made a video about the 10 steps I use for creating an adventure. The link is popping up somewhere up here, and basically I'm just following these steps to come up with a loose story, I guess more like a scenario than a story setup. And so for this month's adventure, I've made a few notes about this wizard named Roshab, and he's after this strange floating crystal ore. And the player's goal will be to retrieve the floating crystal from a group of goblins called the Big Boom Crew. But it's not as simple as just stealing the thing. There's some competing elements, like a group of ghoulish mercenaries who are also after the stone, and then there's this giant flying creature that likes to eat the goblins. And this is typically how I start writing my adventures. Usually I just write up a little paragraph, just a little story about what would happen if the players never show up. Kind of establishes the setting and the motivation of the non-player characters, what they're doing before the players get there, all that stuff. So
Yeah, obviously, I think that it's better for you to start with any part of your world building in the sense of what is the day-to-day, because the player characters, yes, they are the center of their story, but they aren't the center of the world. They just aren't.
Yeah.
They will not be everywhere at once.
No.
And obviously you don't need to worry about everywhere at once, right? But you just need to figure out, at least over time, if they're going to from A to B, and then B to C, and then C to Z, and then back to D. Over that time, what has happened? What are these people doing? What are the adversaries doing? Whatever they might be, is because nothing is frozen in time, right? Necessary. I mean, you could. There could be some things that are frozen in time because, oh fuck, the god of time went, heck.
Hey, I like these guys. Let's watch them.
Yeah, exactly. They're just on repeat forever. And then you have this whole thing of, oh, it's Groundhog Day for this town, and now we're in it. Fuck.
Oh, shit.
Right? Like, oh, then you have a whole thing. But, yeah, I think, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have this weird, because again, I understand the importance and the usefulness of random encounter tables. And yes, making them for a dungeon is fair enough. It just seems like we're just doing a dungeon again.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem like we're breaking any new ground. It just seems like we're doing specific random encounter tables for a dungeon.
Yeah.
That's really kind of what it is, because the only difference here is that you're rolling for it for every room, I guess, rather than specific points or over like resting periods or something. Like however you use a random encounter table for a dungeon. Because again, they already exist.
Yeah.
I don't know. Players can memorize 6 quicker than 240. That's my reasoning for that. Make it more shocking. Oh yeah, sure. Well, that's the thing. It's like if these are all specific towards the dungeons themselves, then they won't necessarily memorize what's going on because you'll have different things because they are specific to the dungeons. But 240 is crazy. Yeah, it would be shocking.
Yes.
If you want to break new ground, you should bring dwarves into it. True.
Yes.
But yeah, I it's just I don't know, like the rolling 2 die on a table, that's a thing that I've seen before as well. On like wild magic tables, that's a thing, right? Like you hit a certain number and you roll, I think it's 100 or 1, and or something. But then it's like, yeah, you
You
roll two
roll a
dice.
number and then a thing
Yeah,
happens.
you roll 2 dice now and take both things. And it's like, yeah, it's another way to make it so that things are more interesting for sure. But the combination is good, but I don't see anything innovative here, unfortunately, right?
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
So for this adventure, which I'm calling Flick Silverpin's Guide to the Great Goblin Flight,
Nice.
I would probably write something like, the Big Boom Goblins have discovered a magical floating ore that's given them the power to fight back against Scud Chumble. That's the giant flying monster. And in Big Boom fashion, they are planning an explosive fireworks show for the ages. But the wizard Roshab wants that ore, and he's sent a group of ghoul mercenaries to retrieve it by any means necessary. But obviously, one little paragraph like that is not enough to run a game off of, so I'll be adding more details to the scenario as I go. For now, I have my general idea, a plot hook, the main characters and factions, and a location for the adventure. So I guess technically this adventure isn't going to be in an actual dungeon like the title of this video suggests. The main location is a quarry where the Big Boom goblins are digging out rare stones from the earth.
Yes, but anything can be a dungeon, as we've said. So it's it's more of a mechanical name rather than a specific place.
Yeah.
To make crazy explosions. So not technically a dungeon, but I guess technically it is a sandbox. A quarry is just a big sandbox, right? Anyway,
Sure.
the next step is to add some details to this location. So I'm going to divide up this quarry into 2 parts, the upper edge and the pit. The players won't be entering this adventure like they would enter a dungeon. They can approach the edge of the quarry from any point, but they have to go through at least one part of the edge area to get into the pit where the floating stone is. Now, I should say sometimes it's easier for me to start by sketching out a map. It's not totally necessary for the process, but it helps me think of some fun features the location might have. This map is just a sketch. It'll get redrawn and made to look all awesome and fun for the final book. But really all I'm doing here is just making a list of locations around the edge of the quarry. I'm actually describing them like dungeon rooms, but they aren't in any specific order. There's stuff like this watchtower, the big pulley, the cluck cluck pin, and the boom burrow. Each location has a purpose, mostly some use for the goblins mining out the quarry. It has to fit with the story of this location, right?
So, I guess the biggest thing that I can say that is the sandbox is the fact that this isn't A to B to C to D thing. Though,
yeah, they can start from anywhere.
Though again, I guess you can do that with any dungeon, which is good. And I suggest that you try to do that with a lot of dungeons. That would be interesting. Because then you could see how your players approach certain things and what they might fall back on as like old reliable plans potentially, right? And thus, make it so that if you really want to, you could make things that are more challenging to those plans, potentially in future, just to up the stakes a bit here and there. The thing is for my thought on, I guess, traditional dungeons, I've never really thought of them as necessarily linear, I guess. Like, yes, you go through the entrance and then you go to get to the last thing. Like, might be treasure, might be a boss, I don't know. But I've never seen them constructed in such a way where you necessarily have to go A, B, C, D, E, where you can absolutely go A, then B, then D, potentially, then E, and then you might have to go back to B to then find how you get through to get to E. Like, you can go out and do whatever you want to by going into different rooms, and I guess the only way that you could really make it super linear is to funnel things behind locked doors, I guess. Or,
well, I mean, you could also have it just be basically in a cave where
Yeah.
you know the cavern entrance is A.
True.
You know, these 3 rooms are B collectively.
Sure.
And then the end is C.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you can kind of make it fairly linear without making it like a railroad or anything.
Yeah.
So them being able to enter it from literally anywhere and effectively, you know, jump straight, you know, if they wanted to, they could jump straight down into the deeps if they wanted to.
Yeah, sure.
That is, I'd say that's actually fairly novel.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a better or a more sandbox way to do it for sure. Yeah, I just in my head, if someone were to suggest an alternate mean to get into said dungeon, like you say with the cavern, of like, yeah, let's dig through like the top bucket.
Yeah.
You know? And then I'd be like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it, for sure. And then you turn a dungeon into more of a sandbox kind of dungeon, I guess, just because of player choice.
Yeah. I think a good way to make a sandbox dungeon, now that I'm kind of digesting it, because I'll be honest, I wasn't paying a ton of attention when he was describing it initially, because I was rebuilding my base and my sandbox world. But,
I got you.
A good way to do it would be kind of take a... You ever play Sniper Elite?
Yeah.
The one where you're shooting Nazis in the balls, specifically?
That's all of them.
That's all. Yeah, that's all.
That's literally all of them. Yes.
That's their only weak point.
Yeah.
Headshots. I've never heard of them.
No,
anyway,
never.
Those levels are so open, and you have so many options to do stuff.
Yeah.
Where honestly, I think the ability to choose how to overcome the obstacles within the dungeon is what makes a sandbox dungeon, you know, an actual sandbox dungeon.
Yeah.
As opposed to, say, oh, you enter a room and there's ogres and shit, and your choices are to leave the room, fight them, or try to talk to them, and you know that's probably not going to go super well, but you know, but you might be able to enter a dungeon. It's like, oh man, you enter a room and there's ogres in there, but there's also a big fucking like decrepit chandelier above them, and there's barrels behind them, and there's a whole bunch. Like, make the area very, very in depth and give your players lots of options for how to interact and overcome those ogres in the room. So that way, it is a dungeon, and yes, you are progressing linearly, presumably, but you have a lot of options as to how you actually want to overcome any obstacle that is presented. So that way they, you know, it feels more freeform.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, that's the way that you want to construct most every scene, I guess, in the sense of just giving them as much detail as possible so they can figure out if they have more options or not. Right.
But I think most of the time when people think dungeon, it's like, okay, we're going to go in rooms and we're going to kill everything, you know?
Yeah, this is why I guess why when we talk about dungeons, I'm usually thinking like, well, everything can be a dungeon, right?
Yes.
Because like a house, as I've said, a house can be a dungeon. You have
a house is often a dungeon in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, exactly. You have the living room, you have the kitchen, you have the basement, you have the attic, you have the second floor and all of the bedrooms. Like, each of those rooms is part of the dungeon, and anything could be anywhere, right? And thus, you know, you have all of the furnishings of the house, you have everything. Like, you can go in the house through the front door, you can go in the house through the window, you can go in the house through the fucking cellar door, you can go into the house by climbing through the roof and flying down the chimney, who knows, right? Like,
yes,
you have all of the options there.
You could go in the house by burning down the front door.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. The correct way to open any door. Absolutely.
Yes.
If it's a metal door, you just make it real hot so it gets burned.
Yeah, and then you fucking like just break it down now that it's overheated.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't open a door with some form of heat and or fire, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly. So
you're never
I guess
gonna live that down.
I lived it down. I think it's fine. But so it's really you guys living it down, really. It wasn't me.
You didn't burn it down.
Nope, I didn't choose. But yeah, I don't know. It's the it's the thing of like, yeah, even in your, I guess, standard linear dungeon, if your players are going to be creative, they can figure out how to do things in a way that is more sandbox-esque. The only thing that's preventing any dungeon from being a sandbox, I think, is your mindset as a dungeon master, in the sense of if you allow them to just try whatever the fuck, as long as it makes logical sense, or at least, you know, logic in the world, then, you know, that whatever they choose might just be planned, like T that you never would have thought of. And then it's like, oh, well, now you can do that. And then, yeah, you can still set up the rooms, like I said, of like, one room specifically is for another room, but they can explore it to their heart's content, do whatever the hell they want, and if they do things in whatever order, they might change the state of the dungeon to make it so that now they don't necessarily need to go to one room in order to open the other room, because something came from that room and opened it, and now it's like out there, and now they can go into that room if they want to, but now they have to contend with this thing that's in this other room now that they're in, right? It's making it so that you're going with the flow of how they approach something, because in this scenario, if they were to approach whatever and then like blow shit up, right? Make a big fucking blow up of maybe their stores of explosives. Well, you had, you know, all of these goblins in these various different places, but now they're alerted. So now you've changed the state of the dungeon in the sense of the enemies are alerted. They are probably going to try to come after you, right? And then you've changed every kind of encounter of how that dungeon works. Are some of them now going to be more on guard and hiding in different rooms? Are they going to be moving out to go to where the players are? Are they going to be going to get better weapons and armor, potentially, and thus making it so that if the players get there first, then potentially they could get to those weapons and armor and potentially make it so that they have a bargaining chip of some sort, or, you know, or hell, if they have a captured prisoner, then it's like, oh, well, are they going to then guard the prisoner more fiercely or potentially take them out, you know, if that was part of the objective? Like, it's just how you deal with the player choice, really. So I don't know, it's just one of those things where I don't see, I guess it's just, I don't see any difference between this dungeon and any other dungeon just because of how I think about them, I guess, which is more my fault than anybody else's. And I'm glad this is a way that can be used to think of dungeons in more of a sandbox setting. But I really just think that it's just, hey, be open to change, right?
And,
like that's
well,
the
I mean,
biggest
honestly, this kind of can be a bit of a demonstration as how you are just built different in some ways. Because, like,
maybe, yeah.
Because, like, you know, this is just what you think of naturally, and this is something that other people need a video to explain.
Yeah,
it to
exactly.
them.
And
so
I think
sometimes you're just built different.
Yeah, and I think it's also that thing of like the being better at improv or anything like that, just being better on the fly. Because I'm not necessarily better at improv. Just I will take the time to just go, okay, yeah.
That's just it's just what you like to do.
It is.
It's something I have a similar thing, but not in D&D.
Yeah.
I fucking love billiards, but I fucking suck at it.
Billiards is cool. Yeah.
Yes, it's so fun.
Yeah.
But I'm garbage at it.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't care.
Yeah. Absolutely fair. Absolutely fair.
Like, I don't even try to get good. I just like hitting balls in holes. It's just fun.
Absolutely fair. I mean, if you want a tabletop sandbox, just rolling more dice for everything is the fastest way. Well, I really, honestly, the fastest way is just making, you know, like I said, making a world as your guideline, and then just telling the players, hey, go. You are in control of the destiny of this place, you know?
Now, I think something that so that is correct. I would agree that that's correct. But on the one hand, On one hand, that is entirely correct. On the other hand, that's a lot of work that some people might not be very good at doing.
Yeah,
so it's not an answer that some people may want to hear, but yeah, being very, very familiar with your world so that you understand that if A happens, C happens, but if C happens, B happens. You know, you need to be knowledgeable enough about the space and the world that you are either running or have created to be able to adapt to the changes the players enact.
Yeah.
And that's not particularly easy if you're not an experienced like world builder or just have your own world. If you want to do sandbox stuff and have it make a lot of sense, like how we like to do, but you know, play how you want.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's going to take a fair bit of mental work on the DM's part.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think there's an easy way to do it, but there's an easy way to explain it.
Yes. And not to mention, while rolling dice can make things more random, you do still need to come up with a system to dictate what those dice rolls actually mean.
Yes.
An easy one that I use sometimes is obviously a D12 for time. That's easy.
Yeah.
And then a D8 for directions. So the 8 cardinal directions, north, northeast.
I do have a die for that. Like it has all the directions.
Nice.
On
You
it.
actually have a directions die.
Yeah,
nice.
I do. I have a weather one too.
Nice. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, then that's another good one.
Yeah, because I'm bad with weather.
Dice that are actual, like, specific dice. I actually have a dinner dice that are meant for, they're basically meant for, like, families and just kids.
Yeah,
it's like, what do we have for dinner? And, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Make dinner fun. And you could do that for, like, innkeeper food if people ask, like, hey, what's for dinner?
Yeah.
Totally. Or what's your special tonight? Exactly. And then you roll them. But yeah, those are the two that jump out the most to me. But if you have other things you want to have your dice do, you're going to need to either get special dice or come up with those tables on your own.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work to do a sandbox. It takes a whole world. It takes a whole lot of work to make a living world.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thought is Dracula Castlevania's castle. True. Yes. I wish more people use D120s for stuff. It's a big die.
Yeah, dude.
Any Metroidvania map, I guess. Speaking of Nazis, Blood Rain. Yeah, true.
Yo.
I've been following Boo's advice on opening doors, and it's getting real expensive.
Yeah.
Remember the goat races Garibay was babbling about? I found a channel that does pig races called League of Pigs. I love it so much. Cool.
Nice.
Very cool. Open to change unless the change involves AI replacing all human labor, which still might be okay if they would give people money anyway, but they're not gonna. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they won't.
No. Even Star Trek didn't think they could get there without Mad Max time first. Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
It is inevitable.
Yep.
Anyway.
Did you know that Activision is already doing shit like that? In Call of Duty, the new Call of Duty Black Ops. Apparently, game, I've seen some of it. Game is super fucking good. Like the gameplay, the zombies, even the campaign is like really fucking good because the Black Ops games have good campaigns.
Usually, yeah. I think there was one that they didn't do so well, but
yeah, there was. I think it was 4.
Yeah,
I think it was 4 or something. Anyway,
one of them.
Where they basically had no campaign.
Yes.
Anyway, they have like obviously a battle pass and all that bullshit, but some of the rewards are literally AI generated. Like I want to say it was a profile background or something, and it's a zombie that had 6 fingers, and it's just obviously like the fucking AI not knowing how many fingers.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Hey man, is it a radiation zombie? Because that would be okay, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Like, but yeah, of course they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucked.
It's the whole.
And they've already got people quitting because they're like, "Hey, we have no protection versus." So, that's the other thing that they're doing. Actually, let me tell you this.
Yeah.
So here's what they are doing now. companies and video game companies in particular are hiring voice actors for like
Oh
a
no.
year. Yeah, just wait.
No.
They're hiring voice actors for like a year,
Okay.
and then they let them go
Mhm.
and use AI to just recreate their voice. And so people are just not taking jobs from them because they know because there's no protection against that currently.
Yeah.
It's completely fucked up.
God damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen, people have or there was it was, what was it? Fuck. One of the Star Wars shows. The Kenobi, that was the one. The Kenobi show had Darth Vader in it. Because of course it fucking did. Because they can't resist. But also
They can't make new shit.
Well, yeah, but also to be fair, it could have been good had they tried.
Yeah.
Because it's it's between, and so yeah, but they didn't fucking try. Anyway, so Vader in that is just that whatever machine, AI thing that you just talk into and it distorts the voice into whatever you want. So
seriously?
Yeah, so all of the delivery is the same and flat. And it's James Earl Jones' voice, but without any passion, without the human element. It is just there saying the words, in the same exact inflection every time. And I mean, they credited him, so I don't know what's going on there in the sense of what the contract might have been or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's been a thing for a while, so.
Yep, it's fucked.
Yep. So at some point we're just gonna have. Remember they were gonna do James Dean in a new movie at some point. I think that was greenlit, and he's dead. So they're gonna bring him back with the horrors of CGI.
God damn it! Fucking CGI zombies now.
I can't take credit for that. That one's a Red Letter Media quote.
Okay.
The horrors of CGI, very good.
Yeah.
But I will use it because it is.
Yeah, no, use it. It's good.
But yeah, it's a whole thing because then they're gonna do the AI thing, and oh boy, here we go.
Yep,
Whoopee!
It's supremely fucked in many ways.
We're doing great. And then we have the current stuff with politics that is going to have books banned and burned and shit. It's great. We're doing great.
Wait, what the hell is that?
Yeah, there's a whole banning thing. Fuck. You'll have to look into it. If you Google it, you'll find out more. It's great. We're doing great.
Great. Awesome.
Yep.
We're literally emulating the Nazis.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Everybody, anyway.
It's going good.
We're going great.
It's going good.
It's going great.
Yeah,
because books are power.
Anyway. So then this is a bad time to tell you I'm having all my art done by AI. It's bad.
I know that's not true.
I know it's not. Yeah, no, it's not. I have spent much money on art.
Yes,
dude.
so for sure.
From a human.
Pay your artists, please.
Yes.
And make sure they're not skipping out.
No.
The horrors for CGI, indeed. Project 2025, I guess. Yeah, it's part of that. Yeah, it's great. We're doing great. We're great. We're doing great.
Yeah, I thought it's going.
It's going all right. Make no machine into the likeness of man. Made me think of a video game about breeding, buying, auctioning all different animals for races and managing everything that goes with that, and each animal would be sorted into classes based on their max speed and other stats. That would be cool. Animal racing.
So Slime Rancher?
Well, no, animal racing specifically.
Oh, animal racing. Oh. When you said animal racing, I heard animal races.
Yeah. But yeah, I would play a animal racer game for like breeding animals just to make the best, is if they were like fantasy animals, really, because like
so Sonic Adventure 2.
True, Chow Garden.
Yeah, dude, the
Chow that
races,
is absolutely
dude.
fair. Yeah, absolutely, I would play that for sure.
Yeah, dude, it's great. I played the shit out of that.
Yeah, it was great. It was really good.
I own the game on Steam.
Yeah,
again,
same.
So I could.
Yeah. Book burning thing scares me. It should.
Yes, it should.
But I don't know if it's going to be burning yet, but it's definitely banning so far, so that's great. some states. I think Florida has already banned like 600 books.
Are they specifically like AI written
Nope.
books? And that's
Nope, like actual good books. Like, yep, yep.
Okay.
I think one
Great.
of them's Of Mice and Men, which is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
One of them is To Kill a Mockingbird, because of course it is.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
But yes, legitimately,
What the fuck?
that's I mean, that one is one of those ones that people had fear mongering for anyway, so it doesn't surprise me at all. But anyway, haha, we're doing fine. Let's talk about dungeons.
Yeah, we like those.
We like those.
Less existentially terrifying.
So there's the big pulley that's used to raise and lower stuff in and out of the pit. The cluck cluck pin is where the goblins keep their egg-laying chickens.
Nice.
You get the idea. So we've got a little more detailed with the location by adding room descriptions or like area descriptions. Next up is the fun part. It's making the random encounter tables. So for this adventure, I'm going to make a table for the edge area and then a separate one for the pit. Depending on which area the players are exploring, they'll have different encounters. And I'm basically coming up with a list of fun NPCs that will be roaming around the quarry doing their thing. So for the edge, I'm writing stuff like onlookers, a group of people from the nearby town have come to watch the fireworks show, or specks, a nearsighted goblin falls into the pit, or one of them will be Scud Chumble attacks. It doesn't all have to be NPCs though. You could add some encounters that are more like events. Could be simple like the players roll a 2 and it begins to rain. Or they roll a 10 and there's an explosion. And the fun part of all this, the thing that makes it sandboxy and interesting to run, is that none of these encounters are location specific. So they can change and have different outcomes based on where they occur and what the players are doing at that location.
So here's my big advocate for actual encounter tables. If you have things that are very interesting in the sense of specific NPCs or events like that, like the weather even, like all of that kind of stuff, absolutely making encounter tables that you do every now and then, you know, in the sense of while people are traveling, hey? Going down the road, you might find this specific NPC potentially, right? Like, just having those random things that are going to happen in the world potentially randomly, having those ones be in their own tables for not necessarily dungeons, but just the world overall. I feel like that's a great way to do it in order to introduce elements that could be missed potentially, but could still give them interesting encounters. So like you have named traveling merchants who are part of a bigger trade guild potentially, who they might meet on the road, and thus if they befriend, they could find out about this trade guild and then be able to go there and, you know, do some stuff there if they want to or something, you know, because otherwise, I mean, they could just buy and sell to the trade guild but might not have an inn potentially. Or they could figure out a different way to get an in if they find that trade guild themselves, but this is just another way to introduce it earlier on or later if they missed it, potentially. And just to have just an interesting person that you might have been like, I like this guy, fuck it, yeah, there's a potential you could meet him, right? I talked about, when we were doing the random encounters talks before, I talked about, during the Age of Magic Fur, back when we did that, there was a potential for you guys to find a goblin, or a band of goblins, a small triumvirate of goblins, if you will, who would potentially find the players if they were camping out in the wilderness during travel, and try to steal your medical supplies. And if they were caught, they would run away or try to, like, just say, give me your medicine and shit, right? And then you could do with them as what you would, but if you followed them, you could potentially find, I think his name was Grubnub, and he was being tended to by these other two goblins who were trying to get your medical supplies with, like, he was dying. He was going to die without these, because he had escaped the slave camps that dwarves had made for the goblins, because they were utilizing them as slave labor, and getting more decadent and hedonistic by utilizing them to do all the work and get all the profits and such. And thus you could find out about that. You could find out about Grubnub, and if any of you had dark vision, you would see that he would be invisible to you with dark vision, specifically, and find out potentially about the ring that he carried that was a signifier of his being the next in line to be the Goblin King. And so he was royalty, and he would, if you befriended, could potentially convince you to help him, and help free his people and everything.
Cool.
But yeah, that was like just a random thing that could happen that I would be like, oh yeah, if you walk around here and potentially I roll and get a certain thing, then you might actually meet him and such, right? Because it's just an interesting thing that I could give you as something else that's happening during the time that you're spending out in Agris, the original world and all that stuff that we were doing.
Yes.
But stuff like that. Good shit for random encounter tables, I think. Very good way to do it. Just to, again, make that world feel more alive.
So for example, let's say the players want to use the big pulley to get into the pit. They come up with a plan to distract the goblin that's controlling the pulley so they can use it to sneak down. I'd have a player roll for a random encounter. Maybe they roll and get the nearsighted goblin that falls into the pit, so their distraction works and the goblin using the pulley falls. Maybe some of the other goblins see it and it looks like the players pushed the goblin. Or maybe they roll and Scud Chumble attacks. It might eat up the goblin that's controlling the pulley, or maybe the monster causes such a big distraction on the other side of the quarry that it makes it easier for them to sneak down into the pit. So hopefully you can see by writing up these random tables, combining them with set locations, I've written a true sandbox. I really don't know how the scenario is going to play out. It's not just a pass or fail adventure. You know, the players get to approach it however they want, and we can all be surprised at the outcome. Now, honestly, when I first started writing this adventure, I thought it was going to be way more work preparing all of this stuff, but by having these simple locations mapped out and then adding the random encounters on top, it somehow actually makes it much easier to come up with all this stuff. And I think the really cool thing is that it's going to be fun to run this adventure multiple times. It'll never play out the same way twice. This new method has kind of invigorated my creativity.
That's good.
And I've just been having so much fun coming up with weird NPCs that can show up and not have to worry about how they are tied to a specific location. You know, it's like, what happens when Big and Boom, the two goblin weirdos, run into the players at the Cluck Cluck pin? Or what happens when the players discover the ghoul mercenaries are trying to sabotage the Boom Burrow? What happens when the players have to roll two options, all chaos breaks loose? It just feels really cool to feel prepared and know the motivations of all the NPCs and what's happening in this location, but also not knowing what's happening in this location. And then when the players get involved and start making decisions, it's just going to open up this adventure in so many fun and surprising ways. I just hope that this method inspires you a little bit and you give it a shot coming up with a sandbox dungeon. Just come up with an interesting scenario with a few different factions, write up a location with a bunch of individual areas, then make some random tables and fill them with NPCs and random events, and then have fun playing. I'm loving working on this one-shot sandbox adventure. If you'd like to check out the finished version of The Great Goblin Flight when it comes out later this month, consider becoming a patron. The link is down in the description. It's a great way to support the channel. So
yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, Pizza Funk. He says, I like this, but it feels more non-linear than sandboxy. Which I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with. I don't know. It's hard to make something truly a sandbox in this way, I think. I don't know. It is a way to do it for sure. It's I don't know. Like I said, I think it is really just a mindset to make it entirely sandbox, in the sense that the players just decide they want to go this way, you put this thing in front of them, and whatever, based on whatever they do, you adapt. That's really like as sandbox as it can get. But it isn't something that's easy. I get that. I understand. It's just something that, you know, you got to work on, I guess, if you want to do it that way. And if you want to do it this way, it's just another way to do it to make it feel more sandboxy, right? Which, great, good. It's definitely good for it. I feel like you need some sort of town to have a sandbox, some kind of home base at least. I wouldn't say so. Because what if your party decides they want to play a traveling nomad band of bards? You know, right?
Yeah.
Like
with an elephant.
With an elephant. That's right. Or
that was such a great moment when all the fucking light bulb above our heads.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
We could buy an
we
elephant.
could buy an elephant. That's right. Like you could have it be that they have a central place that they congregate, but I feel like it's not necessary, because the whole point is to go into a place that has you can do literally anything at all. That's literally what I think a sandbox is just the infinite possibilities of whatever you want to try.
I think having that big open area can definitely aid in a sandbox feel.
Yes.
But I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Not required.
Yeah.
So I can keep making videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!
Nice. Yeah. Okay, yeah. There you go. It's not a bad video at all, obviously. It's not a bad way to do it at all. It can aid in your getting more used to the improv kind of thing, I think. Which is a big part of actually running sandbox things. So if you're having trouble with that kind of improv, then utilizing the tables and stuff to give you that slight bit that you need, then like, yeah, absolutely. That slight bit of prep, excuse me, that you need, then absolutely do it. And then, you know, you can go from there and continue using it. And if you need to continue using it for a long time, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you can get past that and go with truly like guideline and then just go, then, you know, it's also good. It's however you want to play, right? Don't think that the way that I do things is the way that you need to do things for your sandbox. It's just the way that my brain works, right? Because
he's got problems.
I got problems.
Don't let him sugarcoat it. He does.
My brain is fucked.
It is fucked. Yes,
it's a big blender of nonsense.
Big blob of fuck.
That's right. But if it works for you, then it works for you, and if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. You know, just like anything with any TTRPG or anything that's creative, right? Just do it the way that works for you, and improve on it if you need to or if you want to, right?
Yeah.
I guess your wagon can be your base. Yeah, I guess our elephant could have been our base, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not really, you know, we didn't have a wagon.
It's not the best, you know.
We just
can't
had
really camp too easily on an elephant.
Yeah.
You can, but, you know.
Yeah.
You need one of those, like, Persian, like, houses on it.
Ooh,
you know, the little cabins they put on them.
Yeah, those are cool.
Need one of them.
Yeah. Clearly, you should have put a goat analogy in there and maybe filmed it in his car.
Oh,
True. Yeah, it's the only way to really.
Then it would have been a better video.
Yeah. I would have gotten it. Super high tier for sure. Well, that's it. We did the videos. Wait.
Yep. We did it.
There you go.
Huzzah.
hopefully you've gotten some information that helps you. Slash maybe these channels you might be looking into. That's again the Gungeon or Grungeon Master, excuse me, Gungeon, Grungeon Master and JP Couvert. I will of course have both links in the description, so please absolutely go check them out if you wish to. And I guess I will move on to comments. So I will of course extend the invitation to you there, Boo, if you wish to step away.
I think I will.
Okay, with that yawn, it makes sense. I get you.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough.
So I will step away because today was really tiring, and I've got a whole nother 40-hour week.
Well, at least this was nothing crazy. It was good to just
no, it
relax.
was nothing crazy, and I should be better tomorrow.
All right, cool.
At least I hope to be better tomorrow.
Well, yeah.
Alright, take it easy.
You too, man. See ya.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Good. Okay. I'm still able to be seen. It's good. All right. We're moving on to comments and everything, everybody. Thank you so much. For those of you who are going to drop out while I read comments, thank you for being here. Alrighty then. What do we got for comments? There we go. Alright. Oh, I forgot to tell Boo about these comments. Oh well. I'll send it to him later. So, let me just refresh, just so that I'm completely up to date. Yep. So, Timothy, last week, or a couple weeks ago, I guess, technically, says, "Hello, bros. Hello. New lore. The Log of Alabaster, entry 36. After such an intense battle, I was hoping to rest in whichever guest house Cornell and Veronica wanted to give us. Unfortunately, once we made it to the capital city of the Moon Valley, we were mobbed by thousands of townsfolk welcoming their beloved king and queen." Makes sense. The sound of cheers almost gave me a headache. Excuse me. I lost count of how many hands I needed to shake as we were introduced to every important person in the kingdom. Cornell and Veronica gave a speech about both victories at the tournament and the battle against the nameless army that attacked, thanking Renee for defending the kingdom when they were gone and his bravery in battle. Excuse me, goodness. Cornell announced that he would take the last name of Alabaster. What? Something he didn't have time to tell everyone since the tournament took place soon after the honeymoon. Along with that... Oh, goodness. I'm sorry, I'm burping. Along with that was the announcement of the Alabaster family becoming a noble house in general. I was mixed at that last part. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a noble, but I guess it was too late to worry about it now. At the end of his speech, Cornell gave thanks to the blacksmiths that made his axe. This axe helped bring glory to the kingdom, and the makers of it will forever have my gratitude. I wish them many more years of happiness, he said. The day continued with a guided tour of pretty much every nook and cranny, it seemed. As we walked from Lundmark to Landmark, it's capitalized, so I assume that's a different thing. I noticed Galvin and Massimo sticking rather close to Renee, getting along fast. I had a feeling they would just follow Renee if he had to break off from the tour for any reason. Hopefully those two will behave. A highlight of the tour was the massive guest palace on the edge of the castle courtyard, where all the generals of the Moon Valley army lived in. Along with their retainers, apprentices, families, lovers, etc. 5 generals in total, including Renee. The palace was just as big as the main castle, and both buildings being some of the fanciest ones I have ever seen. We were all impressed. Galvin almost fell over. Looking up at them, Cornell showed every room of the castle with pride. You should have seen this place when I took it over 25 years ago. The old royal family practically let it fall apart, he said. We climbed up the West Wing tower, where we would be staying. Each bedroom the size of a small house by itself. When I got to my room, I said good day to everyone and passed out on the bed. Tomorrow, my new job begins. That's all I got. Have a nice day. Thank you. Cool. And then Unit Rico on Beautiful Pixels, aka Pokemon Emerald Sea Glass. Been playing this hack myself after the first stream, and man, it is so fun. Yes, it is. A bunch of Mons have gotten buffs. The deck nav allows you to get egg moves and hidden abilities early, and once you unlock the Battle Frontier, it's super easy to catch and train Pokemon to use in the facilities there. Oh, really? Cool. It's a shame that the sets used by the AI and you in the factory haven't been changed to reflect the updates, but oh well, it's still fun. Okay. Also, fun fact, those pinball stages are actually the boss fights from the original Pokemon pinball game for the Game Boy Color. I used to own it on cartridge. It came with its own battery slot to allow for the vibration function. It was fun. Not sure where the purple blocks are coming from, though. I didn't have that issue on the emulator I used. Fair enough. Yeah, we'll get back to it. We've just been super dwarf pilled, so... so we're probably going to finish out... Return to Moria before we do anything else, because that game is fucking good. Anyway, also Rico on must have been a great honor. The last Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 video that was put out. Oh, you can absolutely fight Drukhari in Rogue Trader, and you most definitely will want to. Playing that game really made me despise those fuckers. Fair enough, yeah. Would also love to see it on the channel. I'm interested to see your reactions to some of the stuff in that game. It's great. And also, I need to actually finish it and get the DLC. Yeah, honestly, I would probably only play it on the channel because it is something that I would love to give my reactions to and all that. So, yeah, for sure. It'll probably be a little bit down the pipeline from now because that's probably going to be a very long game. So, when I'm feeling like a very long game, yeah, I would love to play it. And that's all the comments. Thank you very much. I'm looking to get more into how the Moon Valley works going forward. Cool, yeah, absolutely. Build it up. Some kind of contact with a society that isn't necessarily hostile is more what I mean. Not sure if I'm finding the words. Oh, for what? Oh, for Sandbox? Some kind of contact with a society that isn't necessarily hostile is more what I mean. I'm not sure if I'm finding the words. So, any sort of contact with any kind of factions, I suppose? I suppose, yeah. I don't... So, even then, I'm like, potentially you don't necessarily need that. In the sense that potentially you could be leading the faction, I guess, in the Sandbox. I don't know. I guess that would be contact with a society. But yeah, you could just not either. I don't know. Something you can interact with and form goals with. Well, you can interact and form goals with anything. That's the thing. If you never meet another faction, you could interact with the other players to form goals and interact, right? And all of the monsters and stuff could be that catalyst to give you the goals of potentially creating a walled-off area, to potentially build up a civilization, to do something. Like, I don't know, my brain immediately starts thinking about a literal, like, open world where it isn't a civilized area, it's not a colonized place, and you could be the colonists, I guess, in the sense of trying to explore it and map it out and all that kind of stuff. And I guess you would still have the society that you came from, but you don't necessarily interact with them during the Sandbox, you know? You would just, or you could, but you would be doing all of your thing first in order to set up, all the information to give it to the society that you came from, I guess. I don't know. It's, again, my brain immediately just thinks a Sandbox is just, you are able to do pretty much anything within reason, right? That's it. it's all that needs to. And in my head, that just explains it, and potentially that doesn't necessarily explain it for other people as well or as easily as it could. But that's just, I don't know. That's just where my brain goes, and it makes sense to me. So, my apologies. I mean, you could just wander around in the wilderness, I guess. That would technically be a sandbox, but would you really do that? I might, yeah. If I have the ability to potentially create a settlement, I would actually, like, if that was if somebody said, hey, I want to run a game where you guys are just, like, new explorers of a land that you've never seen before, then I would go, ooh, okay, yeah, why not? I'm weird, okay? That sounds interesting to me. I like that idea because it could be, I could put myself in the shoes of somebody who's not experienced things and get that sense of wonder for experiencing, finding, like, waterfalls or vast plains with wildlife that frolics around, or the inhabitants that are actually not inhabitants necessarily, but the creatures that could be the predators of the place, and figuring out how to defend yourself against them, and hunt and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think that's interesting. So, if somebody else wanted to do that, I would totally do that. Anyway, I'm gonna just go into the end stuff, the shilling, if you will. So where is it? There it is. So hey, we have a Patreon. If you wish to join it, patreon.com/tabletalkcrew. These lovely people have indeed. And if you want to join them for as little as $1 a month, you can. But obviously, you don't have to. Thank you to Draco Kraken, Rick, aka Unit Rico, and Steely for being in Tier 4 for a long-ass time. Big thanks, of course, because you keep doing it. And also the amount that you've done it. It's insane. And also the amount that you give. It's fucking insane. So thank you. And of course, the thank you goes out to Crimson Rose for also being in Tier 2 and doing it for as long as you have, and the amount that you give, of course. So thanks. And a thank you goes out to our Tier 1 contributors. All of the information that you would gain from these is in the tiers that you can see. Actually, I do need to update them now that I think about it. And you can also join the Ko-fi, which is basically exactly the same, for as little as $1 a month, to also become a table flipper if you wish, just like the Patreon. So both are options, but again, if you don't wish to, then don't. Also, you can get our lovely logos and faces on things if you wish. Getting shirts and sweatshirts and all that kind of stuff, and the old logo and everything, if you wish to. I gotta take this down. That's right, we're no longer in the holidays. I will do that later, maybe next week. But yeah, if you wish to support us even further, we get a little bit from when people buy this stuff, if you wish. Also, if you go onto our website, TableTalk D&D.us, you can see all the things that I have talked about, as well as the things that I will talk about. And I have actually fixed this link. Excuse me. And you can buy our custom dice. Hey, I published this. This should only say 96. What the hell? I published the change. Anyway, that's wrong. This should absolutely just say 96. But whatever. But yeah, you can get our custom dice if you wish. Why not just have it all in the store, in the TeePublic store? Because this doesn't do everything, and I can't sell things through the TeePublic store that isn't a print-on-demand thing. So this is just a separate thing. And also this. This is why everything is on this page. It's easier to find everything on the why is that? What? It's easier to find everything on the website than it is for, everything else. But it's all linked in the description, so you know. Oh, the logos? Because they're events in the sense of, like, holiday stuff. Why not? They're limited to the holiday times. Anyway, it's fine. It's whatever. Last but not least, of course, we are partnered with Humble Bundle, so you can go and use the link in our description to support us while you buy whatever you want through Humble Bundle. A portion of it can go to us. I think they still do the slides and stuff, or at least some sort of, not sliders. They do different, you can customize it. I know that much. I haven't done it for a bit. I usually just say, give more to charity, or give more to developers, and all that stuff. Anyway, looks like they have a 5e Adventures, Crafting Monsters, and Virtual Tabletop Assets that's going on, if you have any interest in this. Looks like some cool stuff, if you want. And, let's see. Oh, Sonic. Oh, Vegas Pro. Hey, you want to do some editing? Go for it. Vegas Pro is good. I like it. Probably overthinking it. I don't know. Maybe we're just having a disconnect. It might just be. I don't know. But regardless, don't worry about it too much, you know? It's not too big a deal. I think there was another thing that was, Invisible Sun RPG. Don't know this, but that's another RPG that you could go for. What is it? Let's find out. Invisible Sun. I don't know what this is, but look into it if you want a different TTRPG. Spies versus Vampires. Huh? Is this a TTRPG? Powered by the Gumshoe system. Oh, interesting. This is another TTRPG. How long does this last? How long are these going for? 6 days on the Vampires vs. Spies, 18 days on the Visible Sun, and 20 days on Adventures, Crafting Monsters, and VTT assets for 5e. By the time that this goes up, it will be shorter, so look into it when you do. Obviously, the games and stuff, anything that you buy through the site, using the link, will help support us a little bit. Yeah, Humble Bundle's great. Anyway, that'll do it for me and us for this evening. Thank you so much to everybody who came out. Thank you so much to everybody who watches us in the future. And I hope that you all have a fantastic week. If I don't see you while we do gaming streams and stuff. So yeah, thank you everybody, and I guess we'll see you next week. Goodbye. Bye-bye.